Hello, hello, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Can you guys hear me okay? Loud and clear, Alora. Loud and clear. No one stag. Hello, hello. Hey, hey. Aye, Aramore. Ray. Hi, everybody. How are you guys doing? How's everybody's Monday going? I always look forward to this. I think a lot about the stream over the weekend, and it's always something I look forward to, coming back, chatting with all you guys, hanging out, talking nerdy housing stuff, all that. Ooh, okay. Aramore, figuring out the prom outfit for this Wednesday. Exciting, exciting. Doing fine for a Monday, Laura? That's good. I mean, sometimes that's all you can really hope for, I think, right? Doing pretty good though. Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm excited. I'm like nervous excited, right? Like this is a big week. For one, I mean, I guess this stream I'm not really like necessarily nervous about per se. I'm just going to be speaking from the heart, I guess, and showing you guys what I built with these two nightclubs and talking through all of that. But Wednesday's a big day, at least for on my end, you know. I mean, hopefully for you guys too. But you know, Wednesday we have prom night at Prominence, and this is the first time I'm going to be throwing, I guess, what I would call like a big event in game. So I'm nervous, not so much because like I'm scared or something, but more just like I really care, you know, like I really want this to go really well. I'm really excited for it, and I kind of have like big hopes for that this like kind of really kicks off doing some of these larger events, and so I just hope that it goes smoothly, and I hope everyone has a good time. And you know, I guess best laid plans, you know, sometimes go awry, but I'm nervous excited for it. Do we have some people coming out to prom night here in chat? I know Aramore, I see he's coming. And oh, Maladorn, welcome to the stream. I see you, finishing up a raid. Good luck on that raid. Hope you get the glams you're looking for. I'm gonna guess that's why you're doing it, right? Is the weekly glam One Piece lockout? Or I mean, if you're farming, I don't know, like Nier or something like that too, that works. But some jewelry for prom. Ooh, exciting, exciting. Ooh, that's awesome. I'm so excited. I've been hearing like a lot of people saying that they're getting really excited for prom and that they've asked dates. I've heard several people say they asked dates in a cute way, or that they're really getting into like getting dressed up and everything. Jamawamo, Noren's gonna be your prom date? Cute. Oh, so cute. I really want to capture some of your guys' stories and like the photos and stuff. Like, would you guys be interested in doing that? If I created like just, I don't know, do you guys use Twitter, like a hashtag on Twitter, or if I made like maybe a Google Dropbox or something? Like it's totally optional, but I would just love to have people be able to submit like a couple photos and maybe like a little paragraph blurb of what they're doing either in the photos or like how they asked their prom date or the story behind that. And then I was thinking to be kind of cool to just make a little, maybe like a card website that compiles and shows off a bunch of these stories. Just because I think that like a big part of prom for a lot of people is not just the actual event, it's the lead up to prom, you know? It's the lead up to the night out that matters like almost as much as the actual night out itself, right? It's the excitement of like getting ready with your friends, figuring out what you're gonna wear, or whether you're gonna coordinate with a date or not, maybe planning like, are you guys gonna, well, I guess some people maybe drink or like do a pre-party, pre-game or something in high school or whatever it is. In this case, in-game, maybe you have a pre-party or something, a dinner, certainly a group dinner. I think a lot of people do like group dinners or something in real life. And I don't know. I don't know what people are doing, but I'm really curious. I'm just so curious, like what everybody's doing around this idea of a prom night in here. Also, is that a moon right there? I never noticed this star is like particularly bright. Got any astrologians out there who can tell me? Is this a planet? Or is it just a very nice blue dot, a pale blue dot, as it were? Oh, Laura. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that Fluffy rejected you, and also that I guess you never went to prom. But see, this is one of the things about doing this prom thing is I kind of wanted it to be also a shot for people to make new memories around prom. Whether that's because it was like already great and you just want to make some new ones, or if you never had a prom, or if it didn't go so well, you know. I know I attended two different ones, I think, and like, you know, there was some things about it that like, oh, you know, I kind of, in hindsight, I would have changed some stuff, right? And like, that's I think that's a pretty common thing. I mean, it's high school, right? Like, whose high school wasn't a little scuffed, you know, high school experience. So, but yeah, like, Alora, come out if you can to prom night. The nice thing about prom night too is that it's quite a long event. You know, it's 6 hours long, so it's a much longer opening than normal Prominence. So I think for a lot of you East Coast folks out there, you'll be able to come out to it and still be able to get to bed at a reasonable time. For anybody who's like wondering what I'm talking about, it's this event. So we have this Wednesday, May 25th, we got a special event at Prominence, which is the second nightclub we'll be taking a look at today on the stream. And it's the first time we'll be hosting a major event there. It's a nightclub that I built, and it's it's super exciting to me. I mean, I've dreamed about this kind of happening for a long time. The idea of creating a venue space and then being able to host my own events in it. And so now to be throwing the first big one is like really, you know, the heart soars. Hey, Juliet, hello. Welcome to the stream. Glad you could make it. And Alora, if you'd like to wear jeans, if that's what you're most comfy in, please wear jeans. It's all good. There's no obligation to play this prom night any which way. In the end game, I just really want everybody to come and have a good time. I don't really have any particular rules, I guess, except for obviously the normal rules of club nights and stuff, but getting dressed up is encouraged. If you would like to get dressed up, if you'd like to ask dates, ask friends, you know, really have fun with it, but it's absolutely as much or as little as you'd like. Although, also, just before we get started here with this walkthrough, I just want to make sure when I'm talking and everything, is the music volume and everything okay? The balance between the music and the mic? Can you guys hear me okay? And is there also still a little bit of music going on in the background? Just so we're all nice and comfy as we get this going. I'm good. It's alt. I don't have much choice. Oh, that's true. You don't. Yeah, it's on alt for you, Alora. That's okay. Well, if you want us to help you deck you out, I mean, I don't mind giving, you know, helping you out there. We got a lot of Omnicrafters and stuff. There you go. Juliet will dance with you. Yeah, like if some people want you guys from the stream here, like everybody in this stream has just been so nice and kind and welcoming. So I encourage you guys to connect with each other, whether it's just personally or you can use my Discord if you want and find each other. But I saw like Aramore hanging out with some people from this stream the other night. Aramore, Caramelli, Kaya Lira. I hope I said that correctly this time. They helped correct my pronunciation of it. Kaya Lira, I believe it was. So will there be cake? You know? There might be. There might be, Laura. You may have to find it. So, okay. So the promised event of this stream is that we are going to be doing a walkthrough of both the nightclubs that I built here in Final Fantasy XIV. This is Ichi Nightclub, and Prominence Nightclub. They are both on Crystal Mateus, and they both have different nights that they're open. First, we're going to be looking at Ichi, which is the club that I built first, and then we're going to be looking at Prominence, which is the club that I built second. And just kind of laying the foundation here a little bit. So both of these nightclubs are built in larges, and both of them use all the items possible, or all 400 slots out of 400 slots. And nothing in these builds is in the void or using any sort of third-party plugins. Just putting that out there right away, because I know that's come up a couple times where people have asked, you know, wait, is this part in the void? Or like, is people just, I guess, assumed maybe that I might have used them. So just want to put that out there right from the get-go, that everything you're about to see me talk about and show here on stream is all possible in the base game of Final Fantasy. No third-party plugins needed. And yeah, hopefully it inspires you. Hopefully it gives you a little look into my mind and sort of what I was thinking as I was working on building a lot of these. So all right, so let's get started. Okay, so we are here outside, oops, there we go, Ichi Nightclub. It is owned by my good friend Rothcast, who you'll see here. Ichi Nightclub here in Shirogane. And we have a slogan here, one night can change your life. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we go, because it'll make a little more sense if I give it in context of where sort of that came up. Okay, so starting from the outside here, right? Oh, also, just want to put it out there, since this is live, if you guys have some questions about you know, about certain aspects of the build, feel free to lob them out in chat, and I'll be happy to answer whatever I can. I do also want to make the point, though, that I'm not, on this stream, I'm not going to break down exactly how like what items I use to build stuff. So that'll probably be bits and pieces I'll release to the public outside of this stream, or possibly in like some kind of a documentary form or something later down the road. But this stream is really more about me explaining just the thought process of what went into building these. Why did I make the decisions that I did? Why is it laid out the way it is? What inspired me? That kind of thing. So as stuff pertains to that sort of thing, if you guys see something you want to know more about or have a question about, feel free to let me know. Or if you just want to listen along and follow along, that's great too. I hope you enjoy this walkthrough and commentary of Ichi and Prominence Nightclub. So starting from the outside here, I did for Ichi the entire outside as well as the inside, which is the same case with Prominence. I think it's very important that there is a lead up into a club, right? I think something that is very, like, from personal experience, I think something that really adds a lot to my night whenever I've gone out in real life to real life nightclubs is walking up to a venue that looks really cool and has a really cool atmosphere, even on the outside. Partially because oftentimes there's a line and you have to stand outside. And so if you're like stuck in some alleyway or something, you know, that's really gross and kind of creepy or something like that, that kind of sets a weird mood, you know? So whereas, you know, some other nightclubs, there's like beautiful lighting in the walkway and it, you know, it's really safe and there's like maybe some garden thing going on. It can be really a nice experience to walk up to and hang out even outside the club. So I think that's kind of what I went for here when I was building the outside was we knew we had an Eastern theme because I already finished the inside actually before I even went to the outside here. And little tiny backstory. So I actually live next door here. I used to live right next door to Ichi. Cass, the owner of this club, and I both got our plots here at the same time during one of the Housing Savage plot releases where they opened up a couple more wards. We were very lucky in that regard. And I used to live right here next door. And so actually when I moved in, Roth immediately had already put in these castle walls as well as this fireplace. And so those two items actually have never changed for the most part. I think I moved this a little bit, but for the most part, this is the fire pit here, and then this being the castle walls was already in place right when I first moved in. There was no Ichi Nightclub back then. There was no nightclub at all. And eventually I started getting more and more into housing, and Roth saw what I was doing with stuff housing in-game. And then he and I started becoming friends, of course, as we were good neighbors, as a good neighbor would. We would hang out sometimes outside here. We even had like a little, I think it was like New Year's 2020. A bunch of us all stood out here on this exact little beach bungalow and did our New Year's toast, like popping champagne right here. And somewhere sort of in that 2020 range, right, is end of 2020 is when Roth started bringing up the idea to me about building a nightclub and making this like a venue space. And right from the get-go, he knew he wanted an Eastern build to match, well, first of all, the fact that we are in Shirogane, but then also he himself is just a big fan of the Hingen Japanese kind of aesthetic, right? So right from the get-go, the ask was, I want a modern Japanese-inspired Eastern nightclub. It doesn't have to be specifically Japanese, but very Eastern-inspired, right? And so technically I built the inside first, but since we're outside first, we're going to start here and then work our way inside. So the outside, the first thing I wanted to achieve was you walk up and there was the idea that one day we may have a line out the door, or if people are waiting to get in the door before the club actually opens, they may queue up somewhere. And we wanted that area to be really nice to stand in. And so that was this. That was how this area came about and kind of why the whole focus of the yard is right here. You may have noticed earlier in the stream, it's especially nice, I would say, when it's nighttime and it's kind of got this glow here. But yeah, this whole area is just focused on the idea of creating a really nice place for people to wait to get into the club, or if they need a breather, you know, just have a smoke or have a chat outside the club. They could come out, and there would just be this really nice entryway that is kind of meant to feel like an Eastern version of a red carpet, almost, right? It's like a grand entrance that kind of leads you right into the club, was the idea. And do you have a bouncer? In sense, we do. We have security, right, who try to make sure that people... Alora's asking, by the way, here in stream chat, do we have a bouncer? So we don't have necessarily bouncers at the door, but we have, within the club, we have security who, if someone is misbehaving or if someone is not following some of our rules or whatever, they'll go talk to them. But we don't have, like, I guess so to say, like burly guys out in front checking your ID. But I mean, you know, you never know. Maybe in the future, if it gets real rowdy, you know, maybe we'll have to do that. So, but everyone's honestly very respectful. I think that's something that surprised me a lot when I first started doing nightlife in Final Fantasy, is that for the most part, the vast majority of people actually really respect like the lines and the rules. Even though technically there's like almost nothing that would stop you from abusing that or just like say cutting the line. But if you go to some of the really, really popular nightclubs that have like, they'll have lines that are down the road here and down the block. Like, it's pretty nuts. If you've ever seen one of those, but people are very patient and they stand in line. And I think that's wonderful. I think that that's really cool that people really fall into that, you know, that orderly manner of like, hey, yeah, like we all want to just have a good time here. So we're all just going to respect that and follow the line and wait our turn. So anyway, yeah, out in the yard here, it was all about just mainly focusing on giving this idea that there's a nice entryway. And then this being a functioning FC as well, Raph wanted to make sure that he had things like the chocobo stable in his gardens. So we kind of created this little side area where, you know, the people in the FC could walk out here and still be able to tend to their garden, which, wow, looks like you guys got some crops ready for harvesting here. And then also on the other side, we wanted to create sort of a like, first of all, a reason that you want to come out to the fire pit, other than that it's a fire pit, but we kind of wanted these two walkways, right, that lead you, it's like a T intersection in a way, right, where really everything here is funneling you towards the club entrance. But then once you're actually here, you also understand, oh, there's other pathways that you can go. So for example, if you want a bite to eat, because I don't know about you guys, but something that I've always kind of liked is if a club has some kind of a food stall or stand outside. So that was the idea here. And then I asked Roth, like, can he dress up his retainers so that they match and they kind of fit with the theme? Because I think originally they were in just sort of gathering gear or whatever class these were. And so even down to the retainers, we wanted to make sure we fit within that theme. And so I noticed that I think one of his retainers somewhere had this coat on, and I said, can we match them? And I also, when I was choosing the stands out here, I tried to think about sort of what stands would make for kind of good like munchy food. And I guess also the fact that they are food stands, right? I think it would be a little weird if outside a club they were selling like rugs and books, I guess. So, you know, hey, maybe that's a Charlatan club or something, right? It's like a club for scholars only, of the highest order. But in this case, I think we were kind of going for that realistic, like, you know, Asian street food, right? Like Asian night market. If you've ever seen or heard about that, right? There's like a lot of night markets in Asia. And so I think that's kind of where we were going with this, which is like this idea of like kind of Asian night market food that's very good for like munchies, you know, bread to fill you up if you had some stuff to drink. And we'll have to come back out here outside when it's nighttime. But something, excuse me, something that I thought of adding was these extra festival lanterns. And I sunk them a little bit into the house here, which again, this is all possible without any third-party plugins, mind you, but they're partially hidden in the wall here. And oh, wow, I was just about to bring you up, Liara. How great that you are right in chat right now. So actually last week on the housing tour, Liara was showing us how she was pushing some lamps into the housing wall to create these like little lanterns that are sticking out on the sides. And I remember seeing that and thinking to myself, oh man, it's so perfect, because like that's also a similar idea that I had when I was building Ichi. So that's what I did here, is I pushed these lanterns into the wall, because the big reason here is, why are they on the side and not near the entrance? It's because a huge thing that Rolf talked about when he first was talking about the club, and in fact, when we were talking about what the club could be, I lived here, right, across the street, and he lived here. And so we hung out a lot of times on this beach. And our big thing was like, how cool would it be to regularly throw beach parties, right? Especially for the nightclub. And so that's when I was building the club, I kind of had this aha moment when we were talking about what we want to do with the beach parties. And I thought, wouldn't that be neat if, you know, there are only so many plots in Shirogane that have beach access, but even among them, what could we potentially do to make sure that when people were partying on Ichi's beach, they kind of had like a little extra something that would kind of distinguish it from any other plot that is able to access this little beach area. And so what I came up with was this. And this was actually, I think, the very final thing that I ever installed in Ichi, was putting these lights in. I think I might have even done it while we opened on opening night or something. And I popped out and I put these in, and it was like a last surprise that I did for Rolf, putting these lanterns in. And actually, because I lived here, I actually had one of these over on my plot as well. I have since moved. The reason Prominence exists is because I was very fortunate to be able to get a large. And unfortunately though, I was only able to get that large by giving up my small here. But this used to be my house, and right here where this window is, I had matching lanterns just like this. So the idea was that when you're down here and partying here on the beach, right? And you'd zoom out and there'd be all these people partying here, and the DJ maybe up here, and you're dancing, right? And then you'd kind of look up, and we'll have to come out here at night again, but especially at night, right? It lights up these walls, and it would create this little special place where you were partying that lets you know you were at Ichi. You were at the Ichi beach party. So anyway, that's like a little fun bit that I think probably a lot of people don't know, and hopefully maybe they subtly register that. But so next time, if you guys ever come and party here on the Ichi beach party, take a look when it's nighttime, especially, and look up at the walls here, because actually the walls are a little bit dark without these. There's not really a lot of natural light that gets emitted by this castle wall, nor was it getting emitted by my house either. But then having those festival lanterns, and it's two items. It's a festival lantern and then a little light post, actually, to help further illuminate it. So someone remind me later in the stream, we'll come back out when it's actually nighttime, and then we can take a look at those lights. But yeah, anyway, just kind of a fun little bit to point out there. Ooh, and one last thing, the deck, actually, the deck here with the ramp leading up to it, this is actually a Rolfcast edition. So it wasn't here when I first when we first got the plots and when he first decorated, but something that Rolf added himself was he figured out how to float the deck up here and add this ramp leading up to it. And he was extremely proud of it. And it really is a phenomenal addition, because if you've never seen a Shirogane sunset, you are missing out. Especially from this particular plot, the Shirogane sunset, the sunset's like right there. It is epically beautiful. Maybe we can even try to catch that later too. But yeah, the sunsets here are just unreal. And so something that he was very adamant about is we must have this deck remain, so that way we can really enjoy those Shirogane sunsets. And it's also very nice to kind of be able to hang out here as the beach party's going down below. It provides a little nice overlook for the boss man himself. All right, so There you go. That's the exterior of Ichi. And now we're going on to the inside. Okay, so here we go into Ichi Nightclub. Right, Aaron Moore? Yeah, it's a great addition. Roth did a really good job with that. Okay, so here we are inside Ichi Nightclub. So this is what happens when you first walk in the door. Boom, you're in here. And I think something that people maybe don't always consciously recognize is that they're actually up here on a raised floor. So this is not the normal floors. This is actually all raised up. And so let's see where to begin here. There's so much to think about. The mind races. So after Roth first gave me the pitch of what he wanted Ichi to be, right, which is like an Eastern themed nightclub and stuff, he had a couple things in here already. Originally, there was actually a noodle bar that was over on this side of the build. And then there was, I guess, some retainers and sort of like a guild counter here, a fountain over this way, and then it led downstairs over to a sort of very simplistic dance floor that he kind of set up. He was kind of playing around with the idea of what this thing would be. And so that's kind of how I got it. How I received Ichi Nightclub was in that state. And something that originally we really wanted to make happen was we wanted the upstairs. What he told me was downstairs is the nightclub and upstairs is a bar and the noodle diner. So like both of those things. He wanted to keep the noodle bar because that's where they were doing a lot of their RP and stuff. So initially I actually really did try to hold on to the idea of keeping the bar upstairs. And that's actually where the initial idea of having this, again, a little T intersection thing came up here. So I knew right from the get-go that when building this club, I told him right from the start, there is no way I'm going to be able to use all of the space in your club. And in fact, you will not want me to because it will feel cavernous. And I'll get into that a little bit more when we get downstairs. But I told him right away, like, I'm going to block off the whole upstairs, especially if you want like a club, a bar, and a noodle bar. We definitely cannot have all three floors. So I always knew that this was going to be blocked off. We were not going to access the stairs. And so I thought of this idea, and this pretty much didn't change throughout the entire time I was building Ichi, is the idea of having this T intersection and there being something that you could go to on this side and something you can go to on this side. And originally it would have meant that you go here and there's the noodle bar, and then you go this way and you'd see this bar. And it's something I wanted to make sure was that you couldn't see them when you first walked in. I wanted to make sure that you walk through the door and you have this sort of entryway impact moment where it feels like the lobby or the entry point of a club. And if you've ever been to real life nightclubs too, you know that a lot of them do have this sort of maybe impact point where you walk into the lobby, or maybe you turn a corner and there's like, bam, there's a logo, or like, bam, there's like a picture wall or a photo opportunity or something like that. And that's sort of what I wanted to go for here, was this kind of, I don't know, like a photo wall in some sense. I don't think actually that's how it's ended up being used, but I hope that it's kind of like a little bit of an iconic thing where people pop into this club and, you know, this is the first thing that you naturally look at, and it kind of welcomes you back. You know, you're back here in Ichi, along with, of course, these little otters, which actually, these otters were there. Roth placed these. These are one of the few things that survived everything that I did. They were so perfect, and they fit the theme, and they added this wonderful ambiance, and I left them. I think I left them there the entire time that I was building, except for possibly if I was floating something, I might have moved them out of the way for a moment. But those otters are, once again, a Roth and his FC kind of idea that made it through to the build. And this entry point too, I actually originally, the idea here was I was thinking I wanted it to feel like you walked over a bridge into the club. And Tizu Helzer. Hello, welcome to the stream. I see you waving there. Welcome, welcome. So, yeah, so when you walk into the club, I think the big thing I wanted to, achieve was this. The first thing I envisioned in my brain was this idea of walking across like an eastern bridge over, I guess like a Japanese pond, which, okay, at the time when I was building Ichi near the end of 2020. And we finished January 2021 and opened February 2021. So just to give you some sense of like when this was being created, and I haven't touched it since. So there's no new items in here. There's no 6.1 items. We didn't have the Eastern koi ponds yet or anything. So I was trying to think of how can I create this effect of that you kind of walk in, and I wanted it to immediately feel different from any other just load point into a club. And so I had that thought of like, what if it was kind of walking over this bridge? And at the time, it didn't work out where I could get the height of these things as high as I wanted. Because if you put fake floors a little too high, when you load in, your feet will be stuck in the floor. And so I had to play around with how high I could get this false floor and still make you load in, and your feet would just actually, you'd pop up and you'd be on top of the lofts. You would not be sunken into them. So that was a big thing that I played around with, and ultimately it came out like this, where I kind of nixed the idea of it being a full-on bridge and kind of went for just the more idea of like you're maybe walking over a deck that has like water beneath it, and then that would be kind of also this sort of greenery. And if you know me, I do love me some greenery, so I had to pull that in. So hopefully it's a very lush sort of entryway that sets the mood, sets the tone for coming into Ichi. That's the whole point here. The whole idea here was just setting the ambiance so that you walk in here and you kind of are immediately like, ooh, okay, this is something different, right? And you walk in here, and the reason this door, okay, so I mentioned that originally there was a noodle bar here. So as we kept building, it just became more and more clear that there was no way that I could create the noodle bar and have it be like live up to the rest of the club. We just did not have the item slots to be able to do that. And so what I ended up deciding was this hallway changed a whole bunch of times. I think I relayed this whole upstairs area out like maybe there's like 10 different iterations or more. Like, I mean, probably 50 micro iterations, but 10 major iterations of me experimenting with stuff. And eventually though, what I landed on the idea was that I would put a fake door here, right? So if you walk up to this door, it does not actually open. And I thought, you know what? We can't actually have the noodle bar there. But what would be kind of cool is if we imply that there would have been, or that there still is something else behind there. And so I think I've mentioned this a couple times, and I'll state it again, but this is a very useful technique, not just in a nightclub, not just in this setting, but kind of all over the place, where you put a fake door, fake stairwell, fake something that implies that the building itself is much bigger than you are seeing or that you are privy to. And especially in this game, because we are limited by slots and by space, I think this is a wonderful way to add the illusion of space to a build, because your brain is so used to filling in, a door must lead to somewhere, that you kind of naturally fill in the space. Especially because you walked into a giant castle when it comes to Ichi, right? You walked up, you saw outside, we were using the large Shirogane castle walls. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense if you walk into a giant castle and there's just a tiny little box, and that's it. So I really wanted to try to do some things up here, up in the build, that give you, the viewer, the player who's hopefully immersed in this build, some believability in your brain, so you could build out a little like, even if it's on a subconscious level, that your brain would be able to fill in why you walked into a giant castle and there's only this area that you have access to, right? So the two major ways that I did that was this, implying that you're just not allowed to go into this other area of the castle, but it does exist, right? And then also, as we come over here, I turned the FC chamber doorway into an elevator. So I'm going to give a shout out to Dividus from FFXIV here, because this is where I first saw this elevator. So I do not take credit for this piece right here. This is, I modified it a bit to suit Ichi and to suit this particular way I used it, but this is definitely something that I got from Dividus. And I saw it was a Garlean metal works or ironworks, I forget what exactly he called it, but this was back in 2020 or so, and when I was first discovering housing, I was watching the FFXIV podcast, and they were talking about this metalworks build that he was building, and I looked into it, and I remember and he was showing off how to do metalwork, and I think that evolved into how a lot of people do their space builds and their other like metallic kind of or robotic looking facilities, because I've seen a lot of like what he seemingly was pioneering then, kind of getting used and evolved and stuff since. And it was brilliant. I mean, I love the idea. And in particular in Ichi, I really like the idea of doing something interesting with the door to the FC rooms, because this is an FC. And I think my big aha moment was realizing, you know what, because we're going for a modern club, it would kind of make sense that like a modern club that's in a giant castle probably wouldn't make you run up like 20 stairs to get to the high rooms, right? That wouldn't logically make any sense. You would naturally have an elevator, right? So frankly, I just thought there already is the perfect elevator for exactly what I need to do here with only a few items. And so I took the premise that Div created with this elevator in his build, and I used it here. And I think it works perfectly because it not only themes this nightclub, again, in a more modern sense, but it also gives a little more believability to the height of this castle, right? If you were to show up to a castle and again, there was a stairwell, you'd be like, oh my God, that's going to be an absolute nightmare. Again, especially if you imagine like drunk people, like trying to stumble up to the rooms or something. I mean, no, that's just a recipe for disaster. One flight of stairs going down to the club. Yeah, that's fine. But like a ton of stairs? No. So I thought that giving this elevator as well as having this door really helped to sell the illusion of space, and that again, there is just a ton more both upwards and outwards in this build that you just can't get to, but that is definitely certainly still there. And then we have the little reception lady here, which was a nice little place where we could put the summoning bell and the guest book. And same thing here. These are just like little immersion touches, as well as ways that I was trying to cleverly hide the FC related items, right? Because nobody except the FC members can interact with the summoning bell, for example, or the armoire, which is actually hidden in here, or the FC chest. But because it's an FC, we wanted to keep those. And so I was trying to figure out a clever way to still have those in the build, but make them feel believable, like they belonged there. So that's why I came up with the idea of having a reception person who would kind of help you tell you, oh, in this room is blah, blah, blah. Or, oh, are you looking to, I don't know, make a reservation or something to stay overnight, something like that. And then here too, this is a coat check. And true to coat checks that I've, seen in real life, there's often like a little cutout below the little window. You can talk to the person through the grating. And then you have a little cutout where you would hand them your coat and everything and your ticket. So let's see if we can zoom in here, right? We have coat check lady. There she goes. Always polite. We have some coats hanging up there. Presumably, I put a door here too. So like something that I think, again, it's a very minor thing in terms of like most people will probably never notice this, but I always try to make it believable as to how the build is functioning. So for example, how does this lady get in this box, right? She probably doesn't crawl through this thing, so she probably needs a way to get into the back room here. And so I have the door here. Presumably also for if one day this place was full on in RP mode, Roth could staff someone as coat check, as well as like a door greeter or something here, and they would have natural ways to get to their positions. without having to glitch through the walls or do some weirdness, right? That would break people's immersion. So this door connects to here. So you can actually walk into the back, into the employees only area, so to say, and walk over here. In fact, I'll do that right now. So we can take a look here. I guess let's take a look at this bar. So something that did remain from the very first iteration of our talks is the idea that Roth wanted a bar upstairs. And so he was very adamant that he said what he wanted was a RP focused bar upstairs and then a smaller bar downstairs in the club area. And he wanted to have a space where if people wanted to get away from the noise of the club and do some just casual RP, or, I mean, still nightclub, but, you know, bar RP, they could have a spot to do that. And so he really strongly wanted a full built-out bar up here, and that's what I aimed to deliver here, was giving him a bar that feels like it could belong in a... The idea was, if you've ever been to hotel lobby bars, right? They're usually a little bit more upscale looking, so they don't look like they're from the nightclub, even if there is a nightclub in that hotel or in that structure, right? The actual bar that would be in the lobby area or entryway, and that's kind of what this feels like. It's kind of like a fusion between like a club entrance as well as a hotel, or like a, you know, think like a Vegas hotel lobby, right? I pull a lot of my inspiration from high-end nightclubs that I've been to in real life, like in Vegas, New York, LA, these kind of things. So that was the idea here. Is it supposed to feel kind of like a hotel almost style bar in the Eastern hotel, right? And it would have beer taps and a sink where this guy's like making the drinks, the mixers and stuff, cups to serve the people, and then different types of alcohol, including sake or something, because that would make a lot of sense in a build like this. And then also to have some stools, and that were kind of an appropriate height. So it was nice to be able to get this where it feels believable that people are sitting at the bar. Something like this, right? Where like I'm not really banging my knees. So I think if I lean back a little bit, my feet might clip through here a little bit. But, you know, you could, see my character can sit at this bar. He's at about the appropriate height, or this guy, who's very tall, can logically hand over the drinks. And it feels very proportional, hopefully. Which is something that I think sometimes I have trouble with, where I'm trying to create like a counter or something. And if it doesn't feel proportional, that bugs me a lot, where it feels like there's no way that someone could reach across and hand me the drink or the food. And so I think I was very pleased with how, even with some of this like layering and level changing that's going on here, I was able to make this feel believable. Like I'm not way below the bar, I'm not way above it, and that this guy is kind of still at almost eye level where we can talk and have a conversation. So yeah, that's kind of how this bit came about. And then, like I said, where does the bartender go to get more drinks and stuff? Well, there is actually, it's full on, you know, most people don't even see these open, but there is actually even curtains here, because if you go through here, I guess this is not terrible to see, right? But once again, I kind of wanted to leave it up to your imagination of what's beyond here. And so you may recognize this same combination that I use in my FC house, if you guys have been to my FC house, but using the curtain here to create that very Japanese looking curtain effect that's a little bit floated off the ground. And so then you kind of have a little screen with which you walk behind, employee only area. This is where we have the orchestrion, which plays the music throughout the club if you are not listening to the DJ who's playing that night. And here we go. This is where you'd come out to the code check area, right? So it's all fully functional. But hopefully at the same time subtle enough that it's not really something that people are like constantly running back and forth between it. But I like to think on an immersion standpoint, those little things kind of stack up and they help the player build that storyline, keep themselves immersed in the build. And the final point up here, I think, is beds. So the whole ceiling is beds, pretty much. And we've talked about this many times, but bed meta. So the idea that beds, not all of them, but many of the beds have this thing where your camera, like right now, I'm trying to zoom out and my camera cannot push outside the limits of this ceiling. So you can't see the upstairs above this. But something that was very important to me too was as we were building this custom area, I think a nightclub is supposed to feel very cozy and kind of almost like borderline cramped, if not very cramped, right? It's more important that a club feels full and it feels sort of intimate and like, you know, filled out and kind of dark and a little bit almost like closer to a cave and less like a cavern, right? Or maybe that's a bad way to put it, but I think dropping the ceiling down was something that I always knew that I wanted to do to really help bring the sense of intimacy, bring the sense of closeness and that sort of tightness of a nightclub build into this whole thing. And it has the added benefit of, I thought the metalwork actually on the beds played very nicely with the actual overall aesthetic. Hopefully it's the kind of thing you never notice though. Hopefully it's the kind of thing where again, you walk in and it just feels like a fully complete space. And from pretty much every single angle, you are pretty much kept immersed because you can't really break out of the walls here. So like even if I'm standing here, right, like I can't really zoom my camera out. There's not a lot of ways. There's a few specific angles that you could break your immersion, like maybe like right here or something, you could kind of zooming through the wall a little bit. But for the most part, I think, yeah, as much as possible in every one of my builds, I always try to think about making sure that if I can keep the player never consciously thinking about like, oh shit, I'm in like, that's right, I'm in like a custom crazy mangled up glitched house right now, right? The fewer times that the player has to think about that, the better in my opinion. And that's why all the beds here, it adds, I think, the scale that I wanted as well as that immersion. Did stuff with the floor tiles for ceiling, but it clips if you zoom out. Yes, exactly, Maldorn. Yeah, so a lot of people do custom ceilings where they float stuff off the ground, but the problem that you'll run into is if it'll clip really badly with your camera view if you zoom outward at all. And it's also like kind of, it can be nauseating, I've heard, for some players if you have a ton of stuff and their camera's like freaking out, like zooming in and out. So something that I talk about in my like housing 101 tutorial, and in general, we've talked about this on stream a bunch, is the idea that, yeah, if you use bed meta or another thing like, for example, Eastern indoor ponds, they do the same thing, that they block the camera. It's really great for, if you have a custom ceiling, you float these just above the ceiling and it will prevent that camera from pushing through. Here, really quick, for anybody who is not aware, I first of all created some new chat commands, and here we go, here's one. There we go. So for anyone in the chat here who's interested in maybe bookmarking that, this is the Housing 101 tutorial stream that I did, where I talk in full about what bed meta is, and I explain how you go about creating that, and like why would you do that. So if you want to learn more about that, you could always take a look at that. It's on the stream VOD on my YouTube channel, so there you go, it's linked there in the chat. Okay, so yeah, let me see, what did Julius mode? I've been in some clubs that felt like they required a lot more suspension display. Ah, yeah. So Julius is saying that they've been in some other clubs where you kind of had to suspend your disbelief a lot more, right? So yeah, me too. And the thing about it too is, I think that something that's really cool about that, you know, coming to the nightclubs in here is that every one of them is so different, right? Someone's creative vision, it's very all over the place. And I think there's some incredibly cool stuff that people are doing where they're building these really wacky looking clubs with all kinds of, you know, stuff that is like very much physically impossible in the real world. But that I think that's awesome in a way because it is impossible in the real world. It would be a nightmare to have some of the things that I've seen in some of these clubs in real life, but it's perfectly fine in the game, and that's really cool. But I know that for me personally, I think I had a lot of fun just trying to see how close to a real nightclub I could try to make both of my clubs feel. So that's, I think, like an overarching theme for both Ichi here and then for Prominence we'll go to next, is this idea of that I was really trying to emulate a lot of the feeling that I've gotten when I was in real nightclubs. So, actually, I think, Ray, that's a good point. I think Ray, thank you, Ray. I think this is a subtle nod he's telling me. So, I should clarify. Actually, I talk about the bed meta part in my Housing 201 video, not the Housing 101. Housing 101, I think we went over more just the basic glitches, and then Housing 201 is where I go into more intermediate advanced techniques. So the reason that didn't work for you, Ray, is because it's Housing 201. So here, let me do that for you guys. There you go. So that's the link there for Housing 201, which is, so to say, your second year of housing, but it could be your second month, your second week, whatever. It goes through more advanced techniques, and that's where we talk about the bed meta and the techniques for achieving that. Yeah. So have a look at that if you're interested in that kind of thing. A small note here in this sort of like just the lead up to the club is I actually I agonized over this area for a really long time. I really didn't want to have this exposed, this stairwell. I think just because so much of this was like, I wanted this to feel like it's completely different than the normal spaces that you've been in terms of clubs. And in general, like if you've done any kind of amount of role play or housing in the game, or even just hung out in people's homes, you know the exact layout of a large or of, you know, these houses, and you kind of know how it feels and what it looks like, the normal views that you get. And so a big thing was that I wanted to really break away from a lot of that and try to break up a lot of the normal sight lines that you would naturally have had, right? So for example, when you walk in the door, normally you can kind of see straight away over to this full staircase. And I really wanted to create this sense of like that I'm blocking that normal view that you're used to. So you really have to kind of come over here and you kind of get this more narrow hallway view, right? And same thing here where you can't see down into the stairwell, that you're really it's like leading down into the basement in a very, to me, this was trying to capture that club feel where you kind of usually drop down through a little stairwell or something down into the club. And it's a very, in some sense smooth, but at the same time kind of abrupt transition where you go from like, I guess, normal life per se up here, and then you drop into the club space, right? And you hear the bass and stuff echoing through the hallway. So I played a lot with like how to make this feel natural and trying to figure out what would feel like not just like a random barrier here, but feel like it's just part of the built-in architecture and everything. And kind of what I ended up coming up with was continuing the beds here, and very subtly the beds actually descend along with the stairs. Again, this is like a detail that like I guess I got really nerdy about, but I mean I doubt most people ever will maybe notice it. Maybe subconsciously they will, but yeah, the beds actually slope downward in line with the stairs because this whole area is presumably leading you downward. And then here too, I actually originally thought of trying to come up with some kind of like a lighting scheme or like another logo or something, but slot limitations. And ideally, if I could, I would build the Ichi logo like right here or something, right? To really let you know you're dropping down into Ichi. But it's fine. I think for the most part, nobody's going to be hanging out in the stairwell. So as long as, in my opinion, as long as there was nothing here that had noticeable seams and everything was sealed, so even like here, right? This is all sealed up. As long as there wasn't like a random hole here or anything like that, I just wanted to make sure that this whole area was completely sealed off and it felt like a very natural drop down, right? Including like, yeah, I mean, just making sure that it just feels like it is a natural continuation here. that drops you through to the floor. Having just a couple lanterns is all you really need to help lead people to know that this is where you want to go. And then, okay, here's like the big thing, a big moment is for both of my clubs, a big thing that I did over and over and over again when I was building the club is I would walk the entry point where you pivot and you look into the club and you have this whole view of the entire club. And I guess maybe in some sense this happens in every build naturally with stairwells and stuff, or just like entryways, but something that just really was important to me was I really wanted people to enter into the club spaces, like the dance floor main area of both of my clubs, and have this like, wow, this like holy shit moment, right? Where they round the corner and it goes from, again, like, you know, kind of a certain type of lighting and a certain kind of look, right? And you round this corner and you go, boom. And you're like, oh wow, okay. We are at Ichi Nightclub now, right? Or for returning people to round the corner and kind of have this like, home again, you know? If Ichi, I know for a lot of people, they've said, oh wow, like that Ichi feels like a home for them, and then, which I love. I mean, I'm so happy that so many people have grown so attached to Ichi and what it is, what it stands for, what we've done with it, what Roth's done with it, what Azzy has done with it. And so yeah, I think though that this moment, right, is extremely important to me, where you round this corner and you naturally flick your camera this way, and you right from here could just stand here and have like a moment and look and just go, whoa, oh damn, okay, this is a nightclub, right? You get a view of the DJ right away, you get a view of the stage, you get a view of just the whole layout, and you can kind of get like a bird's eye view right now of everywhere that you could go and what you could do in the club, right? You could go to the tables and have a drink with friends. You could go to the bar back here, right? There's obviously the dance floor. Oh, there's a stage, right? And of course, that you could prominently see the Ichi logo emblazoned there. So then you'd walk down though, continue your walk in, and this is an echo that I mirrored in Prominence because something we talked about, you know, something we talked about when we were building this was, you know, obviously we want a club and it's going to have seating and it's going to have a bar area. And so I spent a lot of time figuring out how I was going to work out this seating area, like how I was going to create that effect that felt like that I've really seen in nightclubs. And I gotta say, we make a joke a lot about like how they're made. So cheese meta for anybody who knows. But this is this combination, this look is really emulating what I have seen in real nightclubs, where you have these booths that are segmented off from each other. They have little tables in front of them, right, with drinks where you put the drinks. And then you have even like sort of like an area where people, like dancers and stuff, might be able to get up on the sides of the booths, or where you put your jackets and that kind of thing. Usually there's kind of like a part that's right behind the booth. And for any of you who have been to Prominence, and we'll see this later today, but this is echoed in Prominence because frankly, I couldn't think of a better way to do this. I really liked what I came up with for this. And so this same sort of visual, I guess, this same architectural design is also mirrored within Prominence, where you have this little entry walkway onto the dance floor that you walk through, and then you have the tables and stuff on either side. Exactly. Let's see, I'm catching up on chat here a little bit. That's exactly how you felt walking into Prominence. Oh, I'm glad. The subtle tiling that clearly divides. Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, so Julius noticed. So yeah, I very subtly have the little tiling on the floor. So I think a lot of this club, the thought was Eastern and elegant, you know? So I didn't want anything in this club to be too loud and garish looking. So obviously there's a route of a nightclub where you get like really bright neon colors and it's like screaming in your face. And that's totally an awesome, viable look. But I think the look that I wanted to go for here was a much more muted and toned back look. So, but I still kind of wanted to like have some fun with like what the dance floor could be. So that's where these changing the tiles on here, it was kind of like a disco floor, but like in a very subtle way. So it doesn't look like a disco floor, right? But it kind of gives you that sense of there's a little bit of something going on the dance floor instead of this just being purely wood, right? So I think so this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this stream and dovetail it into Prominence, and why I didn't just necessarily do them separate, because there's a lot of things that either are echoed in the two of the clubs because they're both built by me, but also like several things that I couldn't do with Ichi, I was trying to figure out how to do them at Prominence, or several things I did at Ichi, I then reworked in a different way, or I said I didn't need to do that for Prominence because I already did it. And so an interesting tidbit that maybe people don't know is, so the reason that this floor is the way it is, apart from the neat little effect with the squares, is the original idea here was the floor that you see at Prominence, where there's the steam coming up from the floor, that was going to be here, right? And so in order to achieve that effect, and again, I'm not using third-party plugins, but in order to achieve that effect and have something that's creating the steam beneath the floor, I needed to have a raised floor. And that was actually the original reason why I was thinking, oh, how cool would it be to have multiple levels of this where there's the raised floor, but then there is still a raised up area where there's kind of the seating. Because if you've been in clubs, usually the seating is a little bit raised up off the normal dance floor. It's not like on the dance floor, or there's tiers of seating that raise up off the dance floor, right? So I think though that before I even built everything else, I think that was something that was a very early on idea, was like, I want to have this raised seating area, and I also want to have a raised dance floor because I was going to try to do something beneath the dance floor. And ultimately, I wasn't able to work that in here because of slot limitations, and I wasn't able to quite achieve the effect that I wanted at the time. And I think you'll see this at Prominence, but I think I was able to achieve it then at Prominence. But that's the initial reason why the floor is this way. But it also doubles as a secondary thing where, as I was building this DJ booth, right? This is my custom DJ booth Mark 1 2-deck setup. I actually did a break. So if you're interested, I did a break it down of this DJ booth. You can find that on my Twitter. There you go, for anybody who's in chat. But if you scroll down to my Twitter feed and stuff, I actually did a break it down of the items that go into making this DJ booth. And one of the first elements that I created as like a club element within this build was this custom DJ booth. And as I was developing it, I was actually originally developing it more like in line with this lantern here. I was gonna have the DJ right beneath this thing. And something though that as I was building that became apparent is that the height of it was kind of an issue because it was really tall, and so your player wouldn't really be at a natural height. Like this, see, even like right here, I'm standing here and it kind of is like really weird to stand at the decks, right? Like that's too high. But I couldn't push this in the floor because again, I'm not using any plugins or anything. So not able to push this thing into the floor. I was trying to figure out like how to make the height feel proportional, and ended up realizing that actually with a troop stage just placed on the floor, it's actually pretty much the perfect height, right? Where you get this, like he could, a DJ standing at his decks or her decks or their decks and then performing. And then it actually worked really nicely with me experimenting with the floor being raised up because it helped to hide how tall this thing actually is. So this whole thing is not sunken into the floor. The floor is actually raised up to meet the DJ booth, which might be one of the reasons why some people have thought at times like, oh, did you use plugins or something? But no, actually, the whole floor in this entire area is all raised up off the ground, including from the moment that you stepped off the stairs, right? So like all the way here too. This extends over here, right? You never touch the floor of Ichi. From the moment that you walk down here, you never actually get all the way down. You're immediately on a false floor here. and that remains true for the entire thing. And in a sense, I hope you never noticed that. If I did my job correctly, again, a lot of this stuff, actually, I would say in design thinking a lot, right? Especially like graphic design thinking, which is my background, is that a lot of your job is to give people an experience and have them not notice things, right? Like you don't want them to be like, oh, whoa, what was that? Oh, that button kind of a little weird, right? You just want things to be effortless. Like it should be obvious where they can go to get a drink. It should be obvious where the DJ goes. It should be obvious where you dance and what the functionality of this and that is. And, you know, you should look at this DJ deck and nobody has to tell you that's DJ decks. That's where the DJ stands. Or, you know, like, what are these? Oh, it's like LED walls, right? Hopefully you kind of just got the sense of like, it's like the visualizers, the LED panels of a nightclub, right? So that was, that's kind of how the thinking went when it was building DJ decks. And funnily, a lot of people, I've seen a couple people, even before I posted the break it down, using this design that I made, which is fine. I mean, I obviously, you know, I don't own a monopoly or something on that. But something that was kind of funny is I saw several people pull in the lanterns here too. And actually, I mean, the lanterns are, in my brain, the lanterns are very specific to an Eastern build, like an Ichi having these lanterns. And so they were never actually meant to be like a whole unit. It was really meant to be that this DJ deck was neutral enough looking that it could be in any kind of club, in any theme. So whether it's a demon build or it's like a rave hall or whether it's a, you know, fluffy rainbows and unicorns land in the clouds, that you could, if you wanted like a sort of realistic take on a DJ booth, that you could pull this in and put that in, and then you dress it up to theme to your build. And then originally actually making this, if you look here, if I angle my camera down, you can kind of see. So something the reason I initially used this structuring is because I actually really like the idea of being able to see the DJ's feet beneath the booth. Because I think it's easy to just make a big box, you know, and you kind of just, the DJ gets blocked. But something that I thought was kind of a neat thing that I hadn't really seen is just this little subtle, like, sort of transparency where it's almost like a stand, a performing stand that's, you know, attached to stage. Because I've seen this in some people's live shows in real life or in certain clubs and stuff where you get this little sort of the full silhouette of the DJ dancing up there, including their feet. And so this is like where I was going with this, right? We keep having this little cutout here, which eventually got a little bit covered up by these lanterns because I felt like we wanted a way to, these double as both something very beautiful, but also a way to help light up the dance floor here. But originally the idea here was I wanted this little cutout to, show the DJ's feet and you could see them dancing. Like, do you see how my feet are kind of like there? Yeah, so, I don't know, a little nerdy thing that I was trying to go for. And maybe it'll come back in another future thing I do or something, but so it's still actually there. It was also meant to feel very kind of like metalwork and very like techie in a sense. I think I'm a big fan of almost like a cyberpunky, hopeful cyberpunky kind of aesthetic, you know, not super distressed and maybe like near where it's like destroyed and rusted, but like I kind of like that idea of very industrial, but beautiful industrial human elements with like the kind of the mechanics going on here that are visible and everything. And so, yeah, I hopefully achieved a sense of that where you kind of have a very interesting looking metallic mechanism structure here that is sort of all around interesting to look at. It's not like just a plain box, I guess, with the DJX on top. So, I guess I didn't directly say this too, but so the decks themselves are also a emulation of real DJ decks in real life. So they are directly modeled after the silhouette of Pioneer CDJ's, and I think it's NX or NSX 900 mixer. So if you look up Pioneer CDJ setup and Google or something, you'll see what I mean. And this is the very classic, this is the club standard around the world, where you have these two decks, two mixing decks, 1, 2, right? And if you look at the silhouette of them, they have, you know, the platter, the jog platter, and then an LED screen display. And then you have the mixer set up in the middle. And that is, and in this case, it's a 4-channel mixer, which is pretty much, again, the club standard. Even though there are 2 decks here only, there's 4 channels, because if you get nerdy about DJing, you understand that like you can, you know, do doubles on these decks, or you can like have an acapella playing on channel 4, but still have music playing on 1 and 2, and stuff like that. So this is actually a detail that I really built not for the club goer so much, but for the DJ, because I really wanted to give the DJs that performed at this club and then also at Prominence, I really wanted, I think I saw a lot of focus being put on like the dancers, the people in the club, and I really, as a DJ myself and someone who really loves that scene and that art form, I really wanted to make sure that the DJ felt as loved and as cared for and is immersed in the build as everybody else. So to me, that meant giving them a realistic set of decks to perform behind, as well as like some big ass speakers and stuff that would like play their music. So also, really quick, gotta take a quick shout out here. Slimologist, thank you so much for that resubscribe tier 1 sub for 3 months. 3 months. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'm really glad to have you here. I see you're saying, yeah, you have been here from very, very early on, pretty much the beginning of the stream, and I'm really glad to have you here. Thank you so much for being here and for that. And I mean, to other folks too. I know some of these people have maybe even heard me talk about some of this stuff too. But thank you guys so much. I hope you guys are enjoying this. Hopefully I'm sharing a lot of like really tiny details about this stuff, and just kind of really nerding out to town here. So I hope you guys are finding some of this interesting. Maybe even learning a couple things about the DJ and nightclub scene that you either hadn't thought of or didn't know about. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here in chat. Julius is saying that they like the height of the ceiling on both floors. Yes. So yeah, I think something that, in this case, I didn't drop the ceiling, but because I raised the floor, again, it creates that cozy space. So yet another reason why I think it's great that I have the raised floor here is because it brings you, the player, upward towards the ceiling. And so that way it once again mirrors the upstairs where you have that very cozy feel. So I guess since we're talking about the ceiling, I'll point out that once again, bed meta. Not so much, even though this is the normal ceiling, so your camera isn't going to fly through the ceiling here. But I use just the beds in a different way here because I wanted to still keep the same kind of metalwork aesthetic that you had seen upstairs, as well as that you kind of see emulated in various other parts of the build. Like, I think with all the technology in the build, right? I think I wanted to make sure that it had a very unified sense of craftsmanship, like as if it comes from both the same era and even from like sort of the same area of manufacturing, right? So it would be a little weird if like the speakers looked super Charlian or something, and then the decks looked super Garlian, right? So I think that was something where, for a lot of these elements, where it was very much like, these are elements that a modern nightclub has: an elevator, a set of Pioneer CDJ DJ decks, big, huge ass like club level speakers, which I don't know if you guys have been in clubs, then you know that maybe that often club speakers don't look like those ones that you have at home. They look kind of like this, where there's huge giant box with almost like, there's like 5 sets of big ass subwoofers here all stacked next to each other in a big structure. So that's what these are, in case anyone was ever wondering what's going on here. These are meant to emulate real life club level sound system. And so the speakers have the metalwork, the DJ deck has the metalwork, the ceiling fixtures have the metalwork. And I mentioned that a lot of my club ideas are kind of inspired by my favorite clubs in real life. And in this case, this is actually inspired by Printworks in London, which is a phenomenal, I think it's mostly a deep house club, but they have other kinds of music events there too. But Printworks is built in a warehouse. If anybody has actually seen the new The Batman, the nightclub that they visit in the new The Batman, the Gotham nightclub, is filmed in Printworks. And it's a beautiful, super cool nightclub. It's literally built in a warehouse, so it has this very industrial feel. It's this super long tunnel, and the DJ is like at the end of this tunnel. And look it up, It's awesome. In fact, the Prominence website is also a bit of an homage slash getting inspired by the Printworks website. But I remember watching, as I was building this, I mentioned it was right around New Year's, and like it was the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, and Gorgon City was doing a DJ set, New Year's DJ set in Printworks, and I was listening to that, and I remember kind of looking at the Printworks side, and I was building Ichi at the same time, and I was just like, oh shit, that's actually kind of awesome. Like this idea of this like sort of long paneled lights kind of running along the sides of the club, instead of just like only right above the DJ or only on the sides of the walls. And so that's where this idea of these big long sort of like industrial structures that are run along the sides of the club came about, and why, I use these industrial looking lights, the factory lights. And I even tried to overlay the beds in a way here. So these are all beds, but if you looked in the other, or if you remember upstairs, the beds are kind of aligned where they have a very clean, neat pattern. And here, again, a super sort of nerdy, subtle detail, but like I really wanted to create this sort of more industrial look to it. So I decided to layer them where they overlap slightly. And I played around with a bunch of orientations of these beds to try to, I probably spent like half a day just like playing around with this particular metal bit in the middle and how this pattern would look. And how I was thinking about how I could have fixed lights to here and make them feel like they're this exposed industrial look, that very factory look. So that's why these look the way they do, is because this is the pattern that I came up with, where believably these lights are affixed to a metal structure, and it still carries through, again, that it's almost like, like when you go to I guess like maybe like a hipster bar or something like that, and they have like the exposed air vents and the stuff above you, it has that very industrial look. It's similar to that, right? Where like you could clean that up and make it super duper slick and smooth, but it's kind of adds a little bit of that like human grittiness to it, right? And so that's a subtle detail of creating this little middle bit here that is supposed to help lend to just the visual appeal of this whole look, to give it more visual interest when you look up at the ceiling instead of just sort of the standard ceiling that you see. And yeah, I mean, I burned a lot of slots doing that, but hopefully it was something a little different that most people hadn't seen before, and it kind of is something that's maybe become a bit like iconic of what Ichi is. I see some people saying, yeah, okay, good. Glad you guys are enjoying all this, behind the scenes stuff. This is the first time I'm sharing this level of detail about any of this, so this is great. It's really cool to finally be able to sort of publicly explain a bunch of these things that I was thinking about. And Cynict, maybe? Thank you very much for the follow. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but thank you very much for the follow and welcome to the stream. And what time is it? Oh, it is... Okay, wait, it's 5:42 a.m. Did the lights turn on at 6? Shoot. Yeah, really quick, maybe? If there's still... It might still be up. Okay, thank you, Knife Dove. Let's quickly see if it's still dark outside. It's probably getting light though, but okay, really quick. 550. Oh my gosh. PS4 load times, please. Okay, yes. So we have the light here. Oh no, okay. But yeah, there you go. You see the lighting? And how it illuminates the side of the wall. So if you were down here, right? Like, I wish we came out. Dang. But yeah, okay, you see what I mean though, right? Where like, that it illuminates the sides here. And so when you're down here on the beach, do you see the difference? When it turned off there? So yeah, there you go, right? That's a knifed of saying, so yes, I did everything by hand. So for anybody who has joined us after the start of the stream here, so yes, everything I'm showing you, everything you're seeing here in this club and in the one we're going to after this, Prominence, everything was done in the base game. I did not use any third-party plugins. And I did not actually build these on my PlayStation 4 though, I built them on my MacBook Pro. So arguably worse, right? Gaming on a Mac, I know. I'm a graphic designer though, so my rig and everything is set up first and foremost for doing graphic design work. And I love my setup for that. It's phenomenal for this. It's just not great for gaming, but yes, everything was built using when I was playing on my Mac, and everything is using just the in-game glitches. In-game methods, right? So nothing you're seeing in any of the clubs that I'm talking about, everything is possible just in the base game alone. And nothing is modded, like there's no modded furniture or anything like that in here. So just saying, you can do this too. There's nothing like, I don't have some special magical plugin or something that helped me achieve any of this. Okay, here we go, back in Ichi. So here we go, walking in. You're expecting the color temperature to be more red? Yeah. So the part of the reason the color temperature of those lights outside looks so orangey is partially because the festival lights themselves don't actually emit like that much light themselves. I think the lanterns themselves glow, but they don't actually emit light. So if you just put the festival lanterns up against the wall there, it actually would not have been anywhere near as illuminated. But remind me if we go back outside again, but I can zoom in a little closer, or you could eventually rewind this in the VOD or something. But I actually have lanterns, like lamp posts, also right there. They are positioned, hopefully, so you barely notice them. But those festival lanterns on the side of the walls actually each have I think it's an Oasis or Riviera lamp post that is also there with them, that's creating that spread of light. And those are the reason that it's emitting such an orange light, even though the lantern and the festival light itself looks a little bit more red. The main light source there that's really illuminating that is the lamppost. And that was because I really wanted to make sure that they was noticeable. Like I really wanted it to be like you're at the beach, and if you bothered to look up, it was like, oh, whoa, like it kind of pops out at you, you know? So, and speaking of lighting, so a little subtle thing I added here too was I really wanted the seating here to be illuminated. So there are lanterns beneath every single one of the booths here. And a subtle thing when how we're talking about how like I would love like just the immersion and in some sense catering even to the role player person, even though not everybody's in here to role play, is when I was building the booth, I wanted to make sure that, again, the proportions here seemed believable. So if you were standing here partying with your friends, your knees would not be banging into this. So I played a lot with like how big each one of these booths had to be to make it feel believable that a group of people could come and party within these booths. Because if you've ever, seen people partying in a VIP booth, I mean, whether it's in a rap video or you've been in real life or whatever, but like, people party very much at their booths as well. And they're drinking here. Usually it comes out and it's like in a little, normally there's not like maybe the champagne bottle in the ice in here, but this would be like an ice tray and they give you cups and stuff and you put it on the table. So it was important to me that the experience of partying in a booth was as good, if not better in some sense, because it's supposed to be VIP, than on the dance floor. And so I played around a lot with, again, the spacing here to make this feel believable, but also I played a lot with different lights here to try to make it so that if you're sitting and you're taking screenshots with your friends or even just talking, that the lighting is flattering on your face. So see how sometimes lights, right, in the game, if it's certain kinds of lights, you can get some of these really harsh shadows like this, right? Do you see how this is not very flattering? Well, maybe you're into this look, but personally, I don't think this is the most flattering look, where it's this kind of really harsh glare shadow, right? And so I thought this is going to be horrible for screenshots, even though, of course, you could G-pose and G-shade and whatever you want to do. But if someone was just taking a vanilla screenshot, I wanted to make it ideally effortless for them, as well as if they're just conversing with their friends and looking at their other friend. Like, you know, if you're just sitting here and, you know, whatever person's sitting here and you're just talking, that it looks really nice. It feels really calming and it feels like a nice place to have a chat. And so see how even the lighting is on my character's face, right? Hopefully it's kind of I think it looks quite flattering, right? This look. And this is true if you sit, you know, other places here too, for the most part. It's a little bit weird in some very specific areas, but even here, I'm right on top of the light, but do you see how it's still just like a very nice even glow? Right? And so yeah, if I'm looking over here or pretty much anywhere in the booth, it illuminates you. It distinctly, if you take the light away, it's kind of dark. So it very distinctly illuminates your character and it illuminates anyone else who's partying in here with you. But from pretty much every single angle that you stand here in the booth, your character will never be hit with really crazy, glaring lights. So that was like a subtle detail that might also, again, it's not necessarily meant to be recognized. It's ideally in my brain, it was like people would just take screenshots in here and think, wow, that looks fucking awesome. I want to share this, right? Like it would be beautiful. It would just be effortlessly beautiful. And you'd take a screenshot and then you'd want to post it. You'd want to share it. So anyway, yeah, that's the way I did the lights all there beneath the things. And I played with the position of like, should there be two lights? I was playing around with other ones where it would like sparkle a little bit or have more of an effect. But in the end, I really think that I really liked just the subtleness of that little bit of glow, right? It feels very high-end nightclub, you know? I think that's a reoccurring thing in a bunch of this stuff is this idea of making sure too that it has like the same types of, again, like maybe design patterns and light treatment and stuff that a real nightclubs that I was emulating are going for. So a lot of recessed lighting where you don't really see the lights, or if there are exposed lights, there's sort of a character to them, right? So these are like really nice lanterns, or these are like affixed to like a metal structure. And same thing here. So I think here we go with the backdrop and the stage. So I mentioned originally that pretty much where this troop stage is here, the DJ deck was right here. So in early screenshots of me testing this, I was right here below this because it was like, oh, spotlight on the DJ, you know? But eventually, I kind of came up with this idea of, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we had the DJ a little bit farther outward and people could dance all around them, right? So the DJ, when they're kind of like doing... I really wanted the DJ to have a cool view where they could show the nightclub like this, right? But they could also show the nightclub like this, right? From a DJ perspective. And then I thought it'd be kind of neat if they had people dancing like all around them instead of just always necessarily directly in front of them. So that was the idea of like pulling this forward and dropping it down a little bit lower, was the DJ is kind of like in the middle of the party, but literally like the center of the party in some sense, right? And then that allowed the stage area here to be more illuminated for like dancers, and kind of also just open up the space a bit here, so that way you could really see this backdrop. Also, you may have noticed, I blocked off a bunch of the back area. Here, I'm gonna break your immersion for a second. I'm gonna jump through this wall so you can see how much. See, look, see this, all this area behind here? So, something that I told Rolf right when I first started the build was I I have to block off a big portion of the downstairs here. It's like almost like a must-have. It's pretty much a must-have for me. And I explained to him that I think you're gonna like it though, what I'm doing, because I know originally his thought was, oh no, but like, you know, we plan to sell this place out. Like this is gonna be popular. And we really want to make sure that it has enough space for everybody. We don't want it to be cramped. And so I told him, don't worry, I'm visually imagining my character multiplied by like 100 or something, you know, in here when I'm building this. And I will make sure that this dance floor feels spacious enough that we could sell this place out. Like you could cap the place out, people can't even get in, right? And yet, if there's only 10, 20 people in here, it won't feel cavernous. It won't feel like, oh, what's going on with this club, you know? Because if you've ever been to a real life nightclub or something that was a really big space, or even like if it's just not even a huge space, but just if you've ever been to a nightclub and you walk in and there's like nobody out on the dance floor and it just feels like a big space, it feels pretty weird, right? Like you're like, this is probably not the one. We probably got to keep going, you know? And so that was something that I explained to Rob very early on was, I am not going to use all this space, and you'll thank me later, because like I think using the whole space from what I had experienced kind of looking at some of the earlier club designs that I had kind of seen in the game before I started building Ichi, was I noticed that it felt pretty cavernous if they tried to use the entirety of the bottom floor a lot of the time. Like there was just a lot of dead space all over the areas, you know? And so that was something when I was building Ichi that I really said, hey, you know, I am going to block off a lot of this, but it will make it so that even on a dead night, it won't feel dead. It will feel like there's a decent amount of people still in here. Or it's like, you know, it's like a small, more intimate hangout party, right? An after hours party even. But then if you pack the club, there's enough space on this dance floor, all around the DJ booth, up on the stage, even up along the seating area here, and in the actual seating area here, right, too. And people could be dancing in here, right, over here. That collectively, it will never feel like there's no room to move, there's no room to breathe. And so far, that's held true. I think we've either capped out a couple nights now, if not several nights now. And it's, from what I've seen, it's never ever felt like people going like, I have no room to move, you know, I'm like standing on top of people. There's always been plenty of room for people to move around, get where they want to be. And so I think, theory proven. And the, here on the stage, I think I called this out earlier, but these are emulating LED panels, right? So if you've been to nightclubs, a lot of times they have a big LED screen with visualizer. Like it's pretty staple of a lot of festivals or nightclubs and stuff. And so this was my concept for getting that in this build, is creating this little moving visualizer effect to hopefully just add visual interest, but also give you the sense of that there's like these LED panels here or something that would be visualizers. And I tried to make this transition feel natural, where I wanted to add texture and character to the wall with some of these design elements, right? Bringing that Eastern theme in, but I wanted it to feel like all of these, like nothing was just like jutting out from the wall or anything. So I played a lot with the position of this to make sure that this felt really smooth and like, you know, like this naturally kind of just like transitions right here, right? It's like at the right height where it kind of just transitions up into maybe this, like it's a bracket holding it. And same thing here, right? Like where the wall bends around a little bit very subtly here. And gives you just the sense of that it's a continuation, right? You should ideally not be thinking about the fact that there's a bunch of stuff blocked off here. It should feel like just this is the box that you were always given. Right? So I kind of wanted to have this little bit of the wall, the wallpaper pulled into this area to give that effect. Like, because I could have extended sort of this backdrop over here too, but I wanted to pull this bit of wallpaper in so that it maybe helped lead your eye to thinking like, yeah, this is like just a natural wall bending around, right? Stormy's saying my favorite spot in Ichi is dancing on the rafters that are the booths. Oh, yeah. Like these ones, right? Are you talking about? Like, I think in the back here too. I think I've seen you and Jesus PJ partying back here a lot. But yeah, definitely like a spot for dancers. And the kind of idea too, again, was like the tier system where like there's like the dance floor, but then there's a tier. Then you could be partying like in the booths and on the couches and then up above them, so that you get this like stacking effect. And I think I was thinking about like in like music videos and stuff, a lot of times you see this, right? Where there'll be like the rapper guy with his entourage at the booth or something in the VIP. And there's kind of like people stacked up all around them and kind of partying like on multiple levels all around them. And that's sort of, I think, what I was going for in my brain when I was thinking about how I was building the booth area, the VIP booths. And okay, last little bit here. Wait, let me make sure I didn't miss anything in the chat. So, yeah, this initial view feels like you would have never guessed that you weren't using. Thank you, Julius. I'm glad that you think so. Yeah, hopefully from the initial impact here, right? Like if you walk in here and you look at Ichi, right? Like if you're up here or even zoomed out like this, it should feel like this is just the natural basement, right? Ideally, nothing clues you into the idea that there is even more space behind there. That there would even be like, why would there be more space? That's just Ichi. It's just that big, right? Okay, so here's the final bit, and actually, and it's the namesake. So, the line, Ichi. So, for those of you who do not know, in Japanese, Ichi means one, right? And the way that you write that is a single dash. Basically, it's like a long dash. 2 is actually 2 dashes, 3 is, so Ichi, ni, san, 1, 2, 3 is 1 dash, 2 dashes, and 3 dashes. And then past that, it starts getting a little bit more complicated. But, so something, when I was building the build, and this is one of those, again, those things that I kind of had an idea very early on, but I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to execute this, was I really wanted a statement piece, a lighting fixture that was a statement piece behind the DJ. And ideally, I wanted it to be like something that would kind of be almost the logo of the club. But especially, I just wanted something where if you took a standard screenshot in this club, I really wanted there to be a defining feature of the club that really lets you know instantly, like in a split second, which club this was. Because I mean, I could see how many clubs have a stage, many clubs may eventually even have like my DJ deck design, right? Or, you know, some kind of a seating or something, right? Like if you took a screenshot here, I don't know that anybody necessarily would say like, instantly this is Ichi, right? Or the bar or something. But I really wanted something that was just like, often people would probably take a screenshot like this, or, you know, the DJs themselves would take photos. You know, if you've ever seen like promo photos of DJs, right? And they're playing at the decks like this. You see what I'm saying? How it's right there and it just like calls out to you. So I really just wanted something that was just instantly recognizable. And then without breaking the slot limit bank, so to say, when I was building this. And this is what I came up with, this light bar, which is the Ichi light bar. So that's how that happened. And okay, and so also I mentioned when I very first walked in the club, I read the sign outside. So originally, Roth, I don't know if he's going to want me saying this, but so originally we were trying to figure out what the club was going to be called because we didn't know it was going to be called Ichi, right? So we just knew we were building a nightclub, it was going to be Eastern. And at the time, actually, his noodle bar that I talked about earlier that was going to be upstairs, that he actually had a version of the noodle bar, and it was called the Noble Noodle, which is a great name for a noodle bar. And originally, like, some level of that was like played around with, even as the idea of being like, the naughty noodle, or like the dancing noodle, or something like that, as maybe like a club name. And we just weren't really sure what the club name would be exactly. But I think kind of like Azzy and I both were like, it probably shouldn't be that, you know? But so then actually when I was coming up with the light fixture behind this bar, and I was kind of thinking, I first and foremost was thinking something iconic, something instantly recognizable, and that I could achieve in game. And I kind of started coming up with this idea of creating like a pattern with lights, right? And then it occurred to me that like as I was kind of coming up with these patterns, that one of the ways I could do this was this horizontal light bar, and it occurred to me that that looks like the Japanese word for ichi, or the symbol, right, for one. And I thought, ichi, that actually could work. You know, that's kind of like a kind of nice, simple nightclub name. And so I pitched it to Roth and I said, what if we called this, and oh, by the way, because it's Eastern too, right? Like it's Japanese inspired. That was always the ask. And I said, what if we called your Eastern nightclub Ichi Nightclub? And what if the slogan was one night could change your life? And which is a play on, if you know that Ichi means one in Japanese, then it's a little subtle play there. Besides just being kind of like a cheesy, you know, corny, fun slogan thing, it would play on the fact that Ichi means one. So one night can change your life. And I think this, I think further story behind the thinking there too was like that I'm a sort of a romantic in the sense of that I really like the idea of thinking about like how happenstance leads to something amazing sometimes, right? I guess it could also lead to something that's, you know, could be bad per se, but like that you just never know what could happen on a night out, right? I've certainly had nights out where I met someone who ended up, you know, being something very important in my life, one way or another, right? Or became one of my best friends or something, or, you know, at raves and stuff too, right? Like this happens. And so I think the idea of kind of that, I think a lot of people think about this in some level, right? Where you kind of like, I never know who I'm going to meet when I'm out and about. I never know what could happen, you know, at this house party. Maybe something awesome would happen. Maybe I'll get the girl, maybe I'll get the guy, right? Like maybe I'll, you know, or maybe like I'll be able to, you know, again, meet my new best friend or find a place I really belong, whatever it could be. And so I really liked the sort of the romantic idea of that in a way. And I thought, wow, that actually works really nicely though with being able to be, and also logically fit in with the name of this club and what we're going for here. So when you come into the club now and you see the light bar and you hear Azzy or whoever the hype people are saying, welcome to Ichi, where one night could change your life. Now you know. That's the story behind it and why it is that way. And I'm glad it stuck. I'm glad that and I think it's become something that a lot of people recognize Ichi for, and I hopefully, on a subtle level, we've always wanted Ichi to be just this place of really warmth and welcoming atmosphere and fun, where you could just, you know, again, have that one night, maybe meet that person, maybe have that experience that changes everything, right? Potentially, or even just changes the next week for you. I don't know. It could be whatever, but yeah, that I hope that it is that for some people. And let me see. Oh my God. Wow. Okay, we are almost at 2 hours here already. I guess I had a lot more to say about this than I realized. But, well, yeah, I did, this is sort of my first, this is my baby, you know? I'm really proud of how this club came out, and it wasn't like one night per se, but like this club did actually change my life, because building this club got me so much deeper into the nightlife scene. It made me really get much closer to Roth and Azzy. It gave me a lot of the ideas, like, and the ability to play around with ideas that became Prominence Nightclub, which is, I now own and I run. And I mean, and a big part of like why I even started streaming was because I saw what was happening in this club. I saw how much it was moving people. I saw how much it was giving people a place where they felt welcome, even if they didn't feel maybe in the real world or anything. And it felt safe, and it was somewhere that they called home even. I mean, really, really deeply moving stuff. And that's beautiful, and that's worthwhile. That's something worth doing, worth making. And So that was building this was a huge reason why I am here today talking to you on stream about this. So yeah, that's there you go. That's sort of the story of Ichi. Oh, so I guess I didn't really talk too much about this bar. There's not that much to say about this one, but so this bar is a little bit more simplistic because, frankly, it was originally the pitch was that the upstairs bar would be the main bar, and so a lot of the resources and stuff got funneled to the upstairs bar that we looked at earlier. And so actually, I didn't have as many slots to work with like when it came to this bar because I kind of went really crazy on the ceiling and all this other stuff. But it works beautifully. I think it's very simple. It has, it has everything that our bartenders need to come back here and do the bar RP and the bar challenge. And hopefully it feels like I made it feel natural here, even though there's kind of like this space that I filled in this space here, but hopefully it feels very natural. And you'll see here then that my experience with this, where we it thought that people would be using the upstairs bar a bit more than they ended up using it. And we thought maybe they wouldn't use this one as much. And that gets evolved at Prominence, where I kind of take that into consideration when I'm building Prominence. So I think maybe actually that's a good transition point to go, let's warp on over to Prominence. So here we go. We're gonna go to part 2 of this walkthrough, which we're gonna go over time here, but don't worry if you do need to pop off or something at some point. The VOD of this will be up on my YouTube channel the next day or so, I think. Maybe a couple days, I don't know. I'll add time, and I'll try to add some timestamps and stuff to what I'm talking about. But yeah, if you want to eventually show this to some friends, or if you just miss part of it or want to rewatch part of it, the full VOD will be available on my YouTube channel. So please look forward to that. And also, if anyone's wondering why I'm not just warping straight to my own nightclub, it's because actually I built it on my main, and you cannot add yourself to your own nightclub, right? So that's why I am warping over there manually right now. Also, to show you how to get there, Ward 20, then you come here and you go to the Etherite, and then you go up to the Dappled Stalls, and you're getting to plot 3, Ward 20, plot 3 on Crystal Mateus. And one sec here, let's there we go. Change chat cover to match where we're going. So here we go. Here is Prominence Nightclub. Here's the lead up to that. This is where it is in the beautiful lavender beds. So, something just a note about the outside here. But this, yeah, so the outside of the build, honestly, you're a little limited what you can do outside the build, right? But so the idea here is Prominence is a very, again, kind of industrial, has a lot of industrial metal kind of elements, and it has some like lighting fixtures that are utilizing a furnace-like effect. And so that's kind of also why I felt that the blacksmith walls would be perfect for this, because they kind of have the same metal work and the glow with the grating and stuff. And so hopefully it does feel a little bit like a natural extension, even though there isn't quite like the perfect, what I would call the perfect outside wall for this. But hopefully it's close enough that you kind of get the idea, right? And same thing here too, like with the metal work and stuff, right? So here we go. Here is Prominence Nightclub. So. And let's see here. So you guys are, oh, you guys like the waterfall here outside and the yard. Okay, good, yeah. So a big thing about Prominence that's a little different than Ichi is I knew from the very start when I was building Prominence that what I wanted to do was build a nightclub inside and a stage outside in the garden. Because I wanted to be able to throw two different types of parties in there. One that was like more of a club night, and then one that was very much a more laid back, chill, hangout kind of vibe. And so, and I've done that. So we usually open the inside on Wednesdays every other week, and then we have Sundays in the garden for the Sunday garden party every other week. So yeah, that's sort of like immediately I already knew that I was going to be doing that. So I knew though that I wanted the garden to be lush and green and really fit with that garden theme. Like I wanted to feel like it was an extension of lavender beds in some sense, and that you were partying almost in a forest, like in nature, right? So that was the idea here. Right from the get-go, I wanted greenery. I didn't want it to just be stark entryway, so I wanted it to have this very nice, like lush entrance, right? Even with the greenery that's supposed to be like ivy growing on top of the metalwork here, like integrating with it. So I played around with the positioning a lot here, try to make sure it felt like the ivy was kind of growing around it, and that there wasn't anything, none of this hanging stuff was blocking too badly the entryway here. So that way when you walk up here, you know, you kind of can, if you were kind of immersing yourself, so to say, you'd walk up here and you could really have a nice clean view as you walk in. Right. And then you're looking around here. Here we go, of course, the message book and a pathway that leads. Once again, the pathway, kind of like a red carpet, so to say, that leads you to the club entrance and where people could presumably understand to queue up. And then also over here, a seating area. I did like how we had the fireplace at Ichi, and I felt like it's just a nice addition to have this glow, the fireplace, a nice seating area. It's huge too, so it adds a lot for one item. And then I wanted to create this sort of a distinct like stage dance floor area even outside. And so that was this. I decided to use the Garlean crates to kind of help frame this area out. So I kind of was going for like the Burning Man thing, where I don't know if you've ever seen photos of Burning Man dance parties and stuff, where there's like crates and, you know, this kind of like structures just kind of like scatter all over the place. And so this is, yeah, that's what I was going for here, where we have these things that kind of box you in and create the dance floor area. And then you have the trees and everything that's supposed to lend to the idea that, again, you're partying out in nature. And yes, Aramore is excited about the garden party. He's a fan. I am too. I hope sometime you guys will come check out one of the garden parties. Here, for anybody, since we're right here, let me quickly put this in the chat. So for anybody who wants to take a look at the Prominence website, there is the link, the address for you in the Twitch chat. And I guess if you're watching this on YouTube in the future, I'll put the link down below in the description, because I think you cannot see that on the actual stream here, but it's Prominence Nightclub, all one word, .card.co. And you can take a look there, and there's actually, I actually opened a Twitter account for it as well, and you can opt in for announcements and stuff in my Discord as well for Prominence events. But yeah, please come out to them. So one of the ones we have is the garden party here. And the inspiration for this stage, and this is, by the way, a stage. So this is, again, I really wanted to make it feel like there was two places that there could be a party. So here's the DJ booth. And obviously you can't build DJ decks out here, but I still wanted to create the effect of like an outdoor booth where, like, if there were decks here, they'd be protected from things like the weather, the rain. So here we go, right? There you have it. The DJ can be here in the booth. And then they have presumably like speakers somewhere hidden back here. And then there's a dance floor out here, right? And I think I really wanted to, there's like lights hidden here that help illuminate this area, especially at nighttime. It looks really nice. And for anybody who's aware of the Anjuna Deep label, which is Above and Beyond, who's a trance trio, trance progressive house, whatever genre trio, They have the Anjuna Beats label, and they also have a sort of brother/sister label called Anjuna Deep, which focuses on melodic deep house. If you love beautiful, chill beats, check out Anjuna Deep. And they throw this party all over the world called Anjuna Deep Open Air. And the stages of that are the inspiration for this. They use a lot of like wood and a lot of greenery and kind of ivy growing. And I love greenery, and I love the way they kind of integrated that. And so a big inspiration for creating this stage was my experience having gone to one or two of the open air shows, as well as watching them on YouTube. So here you go. You can see the lights kicking in here, helping to kind of illuminate this area. So yeah, I highly recommend checking those labels out if you've never checked them out. And also coming out to the garden party if you've never come out to one of them. We'll be having one this coming Sunday, the 29th. And again, you can see always future dates for any upcoming Prominence openings on the website, which will be linked in the description below if you're watching this in the future. So yeah, the garden party is where you have the Anjuna Deep vibe, and inside is where we have the more club, house, techno, trance, electronica, varied electronic music inside. But yeah, hopefully I achieve the effect of making you feel like you're partying out in nature out here. Everything here is supposed to lend to that feeling. So, and fun fact, actually, when you step out the door, you actually step out and it throws you outside the door, like pretty far away from the house. And I did have to take that into consideration. So you actually pop out right here. So I wanted to make sure you weren't in a pond or something when you pop out of the door. So just a fun little tidbit there. Okay, are you guys ready? Here we go. Here we go inside the interior of Prominence Nightclub. And Aramore, I'll look into putting the striking dummies or something in there for the effects. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit. And then I'm glad to show that, yeah, Aramore has been on many of the parties, both inside Prominence and outside. And so he's heard me play a lot of Anjuna Beats and Anjuna Deep label tracks. And I think he's a fan now. So hopefully some of you guys check that out as well, because it's really some phenomenal music. I think if you haven't already checked it out and you aren't already in love with it, check it out and you'll probably find that you'll quite like it. Okay, so here we go again. The lobby area. So I think something that I learned from building Ichi is that I wanted to try this time focusing a little bit more on making sure that I first and foremost built everything that I had in my brain related to the actual dance floor itself, like the main area that people would be partying in. And so that's why this entryway is, I think, I want it to be just enough to make you understand it, what it is, and keep you immersed, but I didn't need it to be anything too flashy. So that's why when you load in here, I thought I want it to feel very moody and very like ooh, what's going on? It's like kind of, what is this? A little mysterious, right? So we have still, again, the lobby, the reception area. We have our message book, right? Our receptionists that are lit up with just some very, I like to think of very kind of precise lighting. Oh, whoa. Hello. So we are, hello, Ariel. So the lighting here is, very, very precise in what it's going for. And then ideally, because it's so minimal too, it just naturally, hold on one moment. Okay. There we go. Okay. Just need to let that person know I was doing the stream because they were asking if they could be taking a look inside. So I just said, if they don't mind coming back another time. So here we go, walking through. So yes, we have the lobby here, and it leads just down this mysterious hallway with just enough lighting, hopefully, to greet you here. And so here we have an elevator, and this time I wanted to see if I could actually do the full-on elevator effect, because we had the fake elevator at Ichi, and I think something when I was first coming up with this concept for this club, I always knew I wanted to kind of play around with the idea of actually putting an elevator in. And I had seen this elevator is actually very directly inspired by Ashen Bride's work. And the elevator that she created for her apartment, it's like a modern apartment build that she made. So I'm not exactly sure who first came up with this idea, how to do this open elevator that actually functions, but I really learned it from HGXIV once again and Ashen. So both elevators in both my clubs are inspired by HGXIV. Dividus's elevator for the Ichi one, and then Ashen's modern apartment elevator for this part. And then I try to do my own take on it here. So, I guess a little preface for Prominence. So I built Prominence in secret over 6 months. So it took me a long time to come up with this. It was a ton of experimenting because I got this large. I was very lucky and I was able to snag one up. And I had always, dreamed all these ideas of what I wanted to do if I was ever able to build my own club. And so a big thing about this club was take everything I learned from Ichi and everything I'd thought of since building Ichi and try to come up with the coolest, most interesting club that I could come up with. And so it was a lot of experimenting and trial and error. And this all took place sort of over the last half of 2020. So I think I finished it in like December, I think, of 2020-ish, roughly. And then I started streaming and performing in it and opened it up in, I think it was February. Ichi's anniversary, actually. Ichi's anniversary was, I believe, my first stream ever. So in February, mid-February. So that's of this year, February 2022. So just to give you some perspective on all the items that you see in here, I don't have any of the super new items again. So everything that you're about to see is everything that we had up till about the end of 2020, maybe slightly into the beginning of 2020. Sorry, end of 2021. That's what I meant to say. So anyway, yes. So the elevator here. A thing that I wanted to go for here, a couple things, right? So one, I wanted to make it have buttons like to operate. So I kind of like this idea of figuring out a way to incorporate the factory elevator, which would give me this natural button that you'd press to call the elevator. And then also I like the idea of having it be green light here because it's open, like it's arrived and you're ready to go. And you'll see upstairs, it's got the red light because it's closed and you know, it's presumably not there yet. And then I wanted to have this lighting. I played around with like, what could I do to make this hallway just look a little more interesting? And so I came up with the idea of having this kind of greenery here, which you'll see echoed in the rest of Prominence. And also having these wonderful, I call them goober lanterns, but they're like the goober lanterns from the subaquatic voyages, I believe. They're beautiful, and they cast this natural shadows it's actually emitting light that plays off of whatever is around them. So I love this shadow play effect where you have it casting these really interesting shadows on the wall. And I think that by itself just added a lot of visual interest to this corner and this area. But I also was playing around with like how to not just get this elevator to function, but get it to be ideally as intuitive as possible. So that if someone may have no idea what to do here, but if you had to guess, right, like how do you do this, right? First of all, I like the idea that I played around with the lighting, and I wanted to make it kind of show if you look on the ground here, that the light is coming out of this. So even if you didn't know that was an elevator and you look down the hall, I like the idea that the green light cues you that there's something going on here, as well as the light shining out here helps you get cued in that like there's something to go to over here. Right, so you can see the light rays coming out of here, hopefully. And then when you get to the elevator, the way that I always explain to people how to get on the elevator is you have to basically jump and you have to hit this light, right, with your head, right? But that's a little bit hard to maneuver like your camera or understand where that is. And so this on the floor, I specifically did it like this because I wanted to give you a target to understand where you're supposed to stand, right? So every time you just stand in the middle of the black square and then you jump straight upward. And I also, in addition to the black square being that way, I played a ton with how big this elevator would be in terms of how wide or the walls and stuff. Not only because I wanted it to proportionally look nice and make sure that there were no visible seams or anything that seemed super weird and out of place, right? Like everything should be pretty seamless and feel like it's a complete box, an enclosed space, right? But I also wanted it to be where there was actually very little space for you to stand other than the hitbox, right? So it seemed feasible that on average, people wouldn't go to this corner and try to do something. They would go right to the middle where the light beam is and where the box is, and they'd interact with it that way. There you go, I jumped up, you see? So I stood on the black square and jumped straight up. Boom, upstairs. And if you were facing in with the elevator and you jump straight up, you would land and you'd look at this view and you'd immediately have a hallway greeting you with a light that calls you to the end of the hallway, leading you into the club itself. And then so we have a shout out even. We have a shout out even that explains people stand in the middle of the black square and jump straight up. If you ever need to tell your friends, stand in the middle of the black square, jump straight up, and you'll pop up right about where I am right now. And you should be right in line with the hallway. And if you flip around, I wanted to make sure that it made sense where you came out of, and presumably you walked out of the elevator, right? And it closed behind you, and now it's going back down to get other people. So it's red, not available. There is the button, which would let you call it back, but it's not available right now. So yeah, during the special event, and hopefully in some future openings, we're trying to make sure that we have like a door person, a doorman or woman, who will be able to direct people and tell them, hey, welcome, and jump on that, jump to get into the club. If you guys ever notice people struggling with that, please help me out and let them know. So here we go. We jumped up, we popped up. Here is the hallway again. And again, we have the shadow play here with lighting. I wanted to this is similar to the entryway where I'm like, most people don't hang out in this hallway, so there's no reason to go crazy with decking this thing out. So it should just feel like a natural continuation of where you walked in. And then it should lead you somewhere though, right? It should lead you to where you are supposed to go. And so the lights, I had minimal lighting here just to, it'd be kind of creepy if there's no light. So I had just enough light that hopefully lets you naturally walk this way. Again, I just really love the look of the greenery. I tried to make it feel very natural where it feels like it's growing up the wall here, kind of out of this collective plant area. It's kind of growing up along the wall, and you get this nice little display, if you will, which, as you'll see in a moment, the circle here, right? Like similar to what I did with Ichi, having a light fixture that kind of calls you both as like a statement piece, but also like it mirrors kind of the theme of the club or some design elements of the club. So, I see someone asking, so how is there a way that you're supposed to get back to the front door without teleporting to the front door? And in short, no. Unfortunately, this is a limitation of the game where I can't, there is no way to make the elevator work both directions. If I was able to do that, I would love to have done that. But the way that we're limited with the structure of the houses in this game, there's only one stairwell that would naturally come down from the upstairs area. And in a moment here, when I turn the corner, you'll see how that's blocked, and it would make no sense to have that exposed. So, yes, in short, if you are in Prominence, you get in through the elevator, and then you open your housing menu, and then you choose the option teleport to front door, and that lets you jump back out of the build. So yeah, no, you cannot clip through the closed elevator or something. It's an unfortunate thing where I wish there was a immersive way to get you out of the build, but I couldn't do the things I wanted to do with Prominence and also achieve that effect. And so I thought this was a small compromise is, that the moment that you have to, when you're going to leave the build, that you'll have to warp out. But this is one of the reasons why I spent so little items on like this hallway and also on the front lobby area, because I really wanted to just funnel people and give them every reason to stay in the main club and not really walk outside at all. There should be no reason that you need to warp to the front door until you're literally, about to leave. So, yeah. And you'll see why in a second here. So, all right, here we go. Drum roll. Like I mentioned with Ichi, a big thing for me is the impact moment as you round the corner, right? And so this is that moment for Prominence Nightclub. Here we go. You round the corner and boom. Welcome to Prominence Nightclub. And yeah, here we go. The main room, the main dance floor, Prominence. Here's what I meant by like the stairs, the natural stairs here that you would normally use to exit from the top floors. They're, you cannot use them, and you understand why now, right? Because they form this area. So, and again, I want to reiterate too, for anybody who is wondering or who maybe thought differently, this is all built with just the in-game available methods, right? We use like sort of glitch techniques and stuff to get things to freeze in place, but there's no third-party plugins being used. We are not, in fact, in the void. This is all within the housing walls of a large mansion in the game. So some people, I think, get a little bit tricked, which actually I wanted to do this, but like I didn't necessarily mean to trick people this hard, but the elevator and the fact that you kind of walk through the hallway, I wanted to disorient the person. I wanted to disorient the player a little bit, where they kind of get a little bit lost into where they are in the space. Similar to what I did with Ichi, right? Where I wanted to break up the natural sight lines that you would expect in a house. So I wanted the elevator to be that point that kind of resets your frame of mind, and you kind of are like maybe not quite sure where you ended up. And so that way when you walk into here, you don't think like, oh, look, this is the staircase that leads back out to the front door. You just think, oh, I'm in the upper floor of this building, right? I'm in the club space. It's a completely sealed in upper floor that I would use the elevator to get back out of, right? And so that is sort of why the elevator is the way it is it's meant to kind of, again, disorient you, and then you get to have, again, this very dramatic looking lead up point where you walk up with dramatic, kind of ominous, almost looking light thing, and then you get to do this, boom, and have this moment, the impact point of looking at this club, seeing the DJ. And once again, from this vantage point, you can see everything in the club. You can see the bar and how active, or, all the people hanging out at the bar. I tried to cue people in with lights into all the areas that are interactable or like places that you should go, right? So, the seating here has lighting. There's a light here specifically in the doorway so that this doorway lights up, and you have like a cue point to tell you that this is not blocked off. You can walk through here to get to this bar. You can see the bar even through here, right? And then even here, this is like a secondary bar. And so the lights are in every position in here. The lights are either a emulation of LED walls, or they are a cue as to the interactable points within the build. A little bit of like, I guess, like game psychology kind of thinking there. Giving the player things that tell them how they can interact with this thing. But to finish my thought about the elevator, so the elevator, I think it did its job of kind of like maybe disorienting some people, but I think a lot of people mistakenly think that the elevator shoots them up above the house and into the void or something. Because I've gotten several people who come in here and they are convinced that they're in the void above the house, and that is not true. You are not in the void. This is the natural ceiling right there. You can see the beams. So this entire space just takes place in, this is the staircase, right? This is the natural banisters of the large. And everything here is all just within that space in a large build. So so again, if you hear anybody saying, oh, wow, that one void club prominence, kindly help me out there and tell them, oh, it's not actually void and there's no third party needed or used in that. So yeah, just a little rumor thing that I wanted to dispel there. But yeah, okay, I see a bunch of people said some stuff in chat, so let me see. Aramore, that he loves Prominence, and Prominence loves you, Aramore. Knife Dove, I'm glad. Yeah. I'm glad that you stayed so long. I'm glad you had such a good time in here. Hopefully it is this place that feels like the kind of place where you could spend an hour, but you could spend 4 hours. You know, it's just like a inviting, lush, maybe a bit futuristic even, but like cozy environment that has a lot of atmosphere and hopefully fits with a lot of the music and stuff that I play. It was built very much to my taste of my favorite nightclubs around the world again, but also to kind of fit the tone of a lot of the music that I really enjoy, which is very like lush and groovy and kind of epic or like cinematic maybe even, right? And yeah, so okay, let's start breaking some of this down a little bit and kind of showing you. So I mentioned that the seating mirrors Ichi, so here we go, right? Here we go with the same pattern with the seating. Because, I mean, I feel like I already got it. I already figured out my ideal seating there. So the difference here, though, is that because of the smaller space that is naturally created by the banisters and the space here within a large, right? I had to make the seating a little more compact here than I would have liked. Ichi uses the full basement's width, so it can be a little bit more wide in terms of seating. So the challenge here was to take the same general structure with like the back ramp and stuff here, but create it in this little space that's within the pocket above the stairwell. So yeah, we are floating here. Everything is floated here above the stairwell of a large mansion. And so I had to come up with new tables and stuff because these wouldn't, the original ones would not fit here. And so I came up with this, which again, I kind of wanted to test to make sure that if you're a full-size like row, your knees might bang into the table a little bit. But for the majority of people, you can sit at most of these tables and it's a little tight, but hopefully you're not super badly clipping into the table too much, or there is a, change of position that will allow you not to clip into the table. And it still gives you the feel of like these are tables that you could have drinks on, right? Which I think is very, very popular at clubs, to have tables so that people can buy bottle service. And again, with the illumination, slot limitation, I wasn't able to maybe do as much of the lighting as I did in Ichi, but I thought it was also kind of cool to change it up and try a different little schema for lighting this area. So I had this idea of bringing in this sort of very lush look that I kind of started with some of these other elements here. And I really wanted to figure out a way to make it feel natural, that greenery would be at a club. So I think I was very inspired by like clubs and venues in like Bali and in other parts of Asia, Thailand maybe. And I've always just been a big fan of the term, there may be other terms for this, but the one that I know of is biophilic design, which is so to say that you integrate biology, but especially like greenery and nature within this sort of the build itself, the architecture of your structure and your build. And so this is something that I'm really, really into, this idea of integrating nature with architecture, with interior design and that kind of thing. And so a big dream that that I have here actually was I'd been dreaming up like ideas for like things, building Pinterest boards and having these ideas of like how I could do this in real life even one day on some kind of level. And so I think a big part of here was, it was really exciting to be able to actually bring this to life. You know, this would be really challenging to do in real life, but I'm really glad that I was able to create this effect here. And Andres, first of all, welcome to the stream. I see your first time chatter. Glad to have you here. And you're asking, could you have floated the troop stages? I don't float a lot of stuff because I'm bad at it. Well, don't worry. So first of all, yes, you are able to float the troop stages. They require a bit of a weird, different method to float them. They have a little bit of a strange mechanism, so they're not as easy to float as other items. But yes, you can float troop stages. And I could have done that here, but I actually, I didn't like the way quite that the pattern looked on the troop stages. So I liked having the look of the grid on the dance floor. And that's one of the reasons why I don't just have a bunch of troop stages here. I didn't care for I tried that. I didn't care for the way the pattern looked. I do actually have troop stages right here. So actually, to answer your question, like, yeah, yes, you can float troop stages. I have them floating right here. These are troop stages. These are wooden lofts. And the only reason I did not do them all one or the other is because I just wanted a certain aesthetic that fit with my vision of this. And so here we go. Also, too, as you probably have seen, the steam coming off the dance floor, the fog machines, right, that you would find in a club, right? This was the fog smoke machines, right? And so this is the effect that I was going to go for originally in Ichi, and why I originally was experimenting with the raised floor there. But I couldn't quite get it to how I wanted at Ichi, but I ended up bringing it back here. And so this was actually something, I mean, I knew right from the start I was going to try to go for this idea of having the actual fog machine going on, this fog machine effect on the dance floor. And so I was really pleased with how this turned out. Hopefully it's a subtle thing, but hopefully it adds a lot of like little extra movement to the club, and it really gives people a little bit of that extra atmosphere, you know, when they're in here. Okay, and then let's see. So the back bar here too. This is actually, again, something I thought of pretty early on, I think, in the build. And I think I missed it, but are you at full items? Oh, yes. Juliet's asking, is this full items? Yes. Every single one of my builds is always maxed out on items. If there's a slot open, I'm using it for something. Whether it's a bit of clutter, a light, or something. Yes, every one of my builds is maxed. It may be one slot. It's possible I have like one slot if I have, I don't know, maybe want to drop a summoning bell down or something. But yes, Ichi and Prominence are both completely maxed on slots. So, and in this case, so they're both built out of 400 slots. If anyone here is kind of new to housing, so a large in this game, the maximum size house that you can get allows you to have 400 items placed. So everything that you saw in Ichi, inside Ichi, and everything you see here is all built using 400 items. And this is also, so this is exactly the same house size as Ichi, but you can feel how different it feels, right? Just by changing the way that you interact with it. So obviously you always load in the front door, but hopefully walking into Ichi and walking into Prominence feel nothing alike. Hopefully it feels like, I mean, if you didn't know the game, you could believe that they're completely different base architectures. And that was kind of intentional. I specifically did not want to just build Prominence in the same layout that I did Ichi. Although I did kind of use the same like entryway with a lobby kind of thing, but like I really wanted to try something different and something that I hadn't seen before. And so that was, you know, how I came up with this and why I thought to use the elevator to take you up instead of down, right? And this is something I don't think I'd really seen someone do before, was building like a full-on bar that was floating in this little alcove that comes with the large. And I had this idea that I think a big thing was I played around a ton with figuring out what would be sort of like a big key structural element within Prominence. Because that's very important to me. There's something iconic, there's something unique, structurally, lighting-wise. There's just something that like the view should instantly be like, ah yes, that's Prominence. Boom. And so in here, I think it's this. I think it's the backdrop. I think it's the chandelier and sort of this whole thing going on, right? And the pattern that is created here. And so I kind of figured out this idea of like the circular chandelier. If you guys are at all familiar with Las Vegas and Omnia Las Vegas in particular, if you look up Omnia Las Vegas, it's one of my favorite nightclub designs in the whole world. And this club is a fusion, I would say, of Omnia and then Vent Tokyo. So Vent Tokyo is kind of like bringing in the industrial concrete look with the greenery and sort of almost like a little bit of a minimalist warehouse kind of, or it's not a warehouse, but it's like almost like a art museum or something kind of vibe. It's very kind of high end looking, classy, elegant. And then Omnia has this very bold, like a huge ass chandelier, and it has LED panels behind the DJ booth. And so if you look at Omnia, you'll see immediately how kind of that inspired this, right? Like the layout of it, with this like over the top, crazy looking chandelier above the dance floor, and then the LED walls, and that they have a curvature to them. So this is a play on both Omnia's LED walls as well as Ultra Music Festival has these curved panels on a lot of the main stages the last couple years. And so that's kind of where I got the inspiration for giving this very subtle curvature to in case this does not register, what I'm going for here with all of the little yellow lighting here is LED panels similar to what I did with the blue lights in Ichi. And so hopefully this feels like a continuous like LED paneled structure. And again, if you take a look and look up like, Ultra Music Festival or Omnia Las Vegas, you'll see what I mean. And you'll see exactly how that kind of came about. So let's see this. I like how the curvature sings so loud. Yeah. Yes, I really wanted to centralize on that idea of sort of emulating like right from the moment that you pop up in top, right, you see this circular element with the lighting, and then it's kind of emulated all over the build with the circles. In fact, if you guys see the logo there for Prominence, right, right, if you see where my mouse is, right, like right here, this is the logo for Prominence, right, and you see the logo there, similar to Ichi's logo, emulates the main key fixture of the build itself. And that's how I came up with both logos. I guess in case also I didn't mention this before, so I do all I don't do all the flyers now for Ichi, but like I came up with the initial logo and the logo design for Ichi that they still use. And so the initial branding for Ichi was done by me. And then all the branding and flyers and stuff for Prominence are all done by myself as well. And so that's partially why I was able to integrate them into my thoughts in some sense and the structures into the logo. So Ichi's logo is that iconic yellow bar, and then Prominence's logo is a play on the sort of revolving circular elements and the curvature that's sort of very present and very prominent in Prominence. And at one point, I think I was even going to call this club like Revolution or something, because it's like a revolving, was it fan or kaleidoscope effect of like a whole bunch of elements that's going on. So, okay, yes, and Knife Dove says they can see the Omnia influence. Yes, I think it's pretty obvious when you see the Omnia Las Vegas and stuff. And Inozamiya, thank you for knowing how clubs look like. This looks amazing. I'm literally screaming with my friends as we watch and listen to you explain. First of all, welcome to the stream. I'm glad. First time chatter I see. Welcome to this stream. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. And yeah, so yeah, I'm someone who has spent many a weekend, many nights, hundreds of hours, in in raves and festivals, in nightclubs, especially within the EDM scene. And so hopefully, yeah, if you've been to raves, festivals, you know, Ultra Music Festival, Omnia Las Vegas, Vent Tokyo, Printworks London, or even just a standard nightclub in Vegas or in New York or in LA or something like that, you know, like Marquee or Avalon or whatever, you know, these clubs. Hopefully a lot of elements that you see here are reflected in how you would imagine a nightclub would look like if kind of taking some of the fantasticalness of Final Fantasy, of course, but then grounding it in that reality that of the feel and the atmosphere and the mood that I love so much about nightclubs. So, yes. And yes, also, in case someone is wondering, what is the lighting effect here? Those are the carbuncle, indeed, the carbuncle lamps from the Mog Station. So, and in my case, like, you know, it would take a small fortune to have to actually to be able to fill in all the LEDs, but I wanted to at least give you the effect of the LED again moving around through the lighting, so that it kind of helps you cue you in to have motion. I think a huge thing about this build that I wanted to, you know, work on was creating a lot of movement within the build naturally within the game. So obviously on our overlay or something, you could have all kinds of stuff going on and lighting effects, and you could overlay maybe a green screen in here and that kind of thing. But I wanted, like, even for someone who's just in the base game, who's just walking around this club, to have a lot of things that are kind of moving around through the club. And so that's why I wanted the fog to be moving. I had this, you know, the lighting fixtures here giving some movement to here. And then I even also like wanted to have steam jets shooting up, right? If you've ever seen festival stages and stuff, right, then you know that they have these like the streamers or like the flamethrowers are coming up and steam jets coming out of a stage. And so that's what these are. It's meant to emulate that, where they have like, it's kind of like the confetti machines or the fog machines, right? Where the DJ, it's like 3, 2, 1, drop. And then like all the fog jets go off at the same time. So that's what's happening here. And kind of all, again, to give you just the sense of that there's lots of movement, there's lots of things happening in addition to all the people dancing around. And okay, so since we're up here, of course, have to call attention to my DJ decks. And I have not actually done a break it down of these yet. I kind of like, so I like magic. You know, I like the mystery of it, even though we know it's not real, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, spoilers. But like, I love what magicians do, right? Which is they take something that is real, that is physical, that you kind of like on your brain, you feel like you understand the world, and they flip it on its head, right? And they also, you know, a magician never reveals their secrets and stuff. Because if you've watched The Prestige, right, then Michael Caine says, or is it Michael Caine? No. Christian Bale says, you know, the trick, the technique, the trick impresses no one. The trick that you use it for is everything, right? And while he wasn't necessarily the best role model per se, in The Prestige, wonderful movie by the way. If you've never seen The Prestige, watch The Prestige. One of my favorites. But I just love that idea of kind of keeping some mystery about stuff. And like sort of the big reveal of stuff, right? This is like the magician in me is like, I want you to walk around this corner and look at this build and go, what? Wait, is that possible? You know, or like, oh my God, like, whoa, you know, have that wow moment. Even if you could break it down after that, I think that's something that's so hard to capture, right? That really fleeting thing where you really wow someone, right? That's a really hard feeling to capture, where someone is just like, I don't know how you did this, right? And I think that even with a simple like card trick, right? I think that's that face you see a little kid make, right? When you show them a magic trick, like you just make like a penny vanish or something, and they're just like, oh my God, wait, what? How? Right? And I think that's pretty much like the feeling that I really adore. And so I'm not going to tell all the secrets of exactly how I make everything, partially because I like that there is some mystery to it. I like it to be a special thing that you kind of have to come here to see, at least for a little while. I'll eventually probably, you know, release it to the world. But anyway, this is my Noasai DJ decks Mark II, the 4-deck version. And so here we go. So if you were here earlier or watched the VOD, you see that I had a 2-deck setup for Ichi. And this is my evolution of that. I tried to come up with what would be the evolution of this. And the first thing I thought of was at festivals, they usually have 4 decks set up for the DJs to perform on. And so I'm gonna get a little DJ like nerdy on you right now. I'm not a sound engineer, and so I don't pretend to be a professional on this, but a little fun fact of like, if you've ever, like most DJs only really need 2 decks because they're kind of mixing this song to this song, this song to this song, right? Back and forth. But so why do festivals or even some clubs have 4 decks? One, because some DJs actually do use 4 decks. So they'll put an acapella on the one over here. If you see my mouse, like maybe an acapella is playing out here, and then you have your 2 main tracks here. And you have like you could have even 2 acapellas going, or there's a loop going on this one. So performance, right? Another aspect is Armin van Buuren, very famous, well-known trance DJ. If you know him, shout out Armin, you're amazing. Love your music. Very influential guy. He did a famous interview where he showed that he was using the 2 inner decks to play music, and then he was using the 2 outer decks to sync his visuals to these decks. So he was like passing a time code signal over to these other decks that would help sync these decks together, and then they pass that information to the front of the house. And that way he had like sort of a full-on DJ setup as well as a VJ setup that he himself was kind of able to help maneuver, which allowed him to play live. Because if you've ever been to a music festival or some of these places and you think, how is this visual so synced perfectly to the music? It must be pre-recorded, right? Like he's changing tempos and he's like, mixing and stuff. Like it's got to be pre-recorded then, right? Or something. Or you have like a VJ in the front of the house who's just super fucking accurate at syncing it really quickly. But one of the ways, even early on, because this video came out many years ago, there's advances in technologies now, but you can use these decks like linked up, and you can port that info out to the front of the house. And that way, like if you're changing the tempo on one of the decks and you have these 2 decks synced up, and this one has your video playing, then they play in tandem. And then your the guy in the front of the house isn't like guessing if he has to figure out the lighting differently, right? He's got a signal coming in that it's kind of like already mostly synced up. And then the other reason though is redundancy, because at a festival, one of the biggest things is most festivals are like broadcast to some sense or recorded. So if you have 2 decks and one of them craps out on you, you're screwed, right? And at a big festival, it would be really bad if you had to shut the main stage, let's say, of the festival down for like an hour to go fix the deck. So another big reason why they have this is redundancy, where if this deck shits out, then like you can just use this deck instead, right? And same thing here. There's redundancy on both of the sides of the mixer. And then, and a final point is that, that also sometimes you have it where another DJ might want to queue up their song or something. So maybe this person is still going and, mixing their last 2 songs or something together. But the next DJ could actually even plug in his USB on one of these side CDJs and then start kind of getting his song and his set all queued up if they're going on next, because they sort of give that seamless transition over or something. Or even you could play like back to back. You could have multiple people up here and like, DJs 1 and 2 are playing on these 2 decks and another is here. And they could each be plugging in their own USB to each CDJ and kind of being able to cue in some of their songs and stuff. So anyway, it just a little fun fact, a little bit of behind the scenes info, I guess, of like why 4 decks, even though it may seem a little excessive. If you see most DJs like that you see on streams, they have 2 and they get by completely fine. So if you're just wondering like why would you ever need 4 decks besides to just look cool, there you go. There are some reasons. And so with building these in game though, some other points that I have is you can see a lot of the same elements, right? The screen that I use, the same, the jog wheels same four channel mixer, right? And I think a big thing though that I wanted to do though was I wanted to make the decks feel a little more proportional to your character. So if we look at Ichi's DJ decks, honestly, I still love Ichi's DJ decks, and I really love them, and I think that they're actually phenomenal for a slightly different type of club design, right? But for this setup, I think a big thing that I wanted to do, at the cost though of a lot of slots, was I wanted to create this similar silhouette with the CDJs. If you look up CDJ, Pioneer Festival setup, you'll see what I mean. I wanted to create it proportional to the character's body. The Ichi decks are a touch big. At certain angles, you can't actually tell, but I think on certain other angles, if you actually look at the proportions of the deck and the kind of overall structure compared to the person, it's a little bit on the big side. And so something here at Prominence that I wanted to try to figure out if I could do, and I think I did pretty decently well, was I wanted to make the whole deck setup feel a little more compact, and so that it matches proportionally to your character's proportions as they're standing up here. With obviously, if you're like a full-size row or like a minimum-sized Lalafell, of course it's going to be a little bit off in scaling, but like to the average DJ person, and in general, I think it's a little bit more proportional to characters in the game in terms of believability of that you could reach all the buttons and interact with all these decks, right? And also, of course, that I wanted to make sure this space was fully, quote-unquote, functional, where you could get to all the decks. And I was playing around with this idea of, like, how the hype people do it. So at Ichi, I forgot to call attention to this, but at Ichi, there's little cabinets on the side of the DJ decks. And that's often where Azzy and Shiro and whoever the hype crew is maybe stand next to DJ and they give cheers out. And I actually didn't plan it quite as that when I first built Ichi, but I saw that that's how they were using it. And so I remember that when I was building this, and I wanted to make sure that there was, again, a spot for hype people to stand when they were hyping up the audience, and something believable, so they're not like floating somewhere. So actually, I tried a ton of different designs here, and I came up with this where you have this ability. You can actually stand here, and you have just enough space where you can do this, like Songbird or Bee's Knees in this pocket, and it looks believable that you would actually stand here, right? And if you've been to like some Vegas nightclubs or festivals and stuff, the DJs or the hype people jump up on the decks and they like yell at the audience, 3, everybody, let's fucking go. You gotta get your hands up, right? So that's also why the spacing is the way it is it's very intentionally spaced to create a space where your hype people could stand that's believable, and they actually have a surface to stand on. I tried a couple different methods to create this. See, there's like a lip going around the DJ booth here. And this is not just for, it's aesthetically pleasing, hopefully, right? But it is also, practically speaking, you kind of want a safety mechanism. So if someone nudges one of these, they don't just tip over the front, or, like it's just a little bit of shielding, basically. I actually, in probably like a real venue setting, you'd have little blinder or like little glass or something so that people couldn't, like there's nothing that could get thrown up here, or a little bit of shielding from drinks or that kind of thing, spillage. Like if someone's partying in the VIP, right, you don't want people spilling their stuff into here. So there is this little lip here. And I played around a lot with different types of ways to create just this whole structure here that felt cohesive and created the little pocket. And like one of the things I tried earlier, actually it had your character, for whatever reason, your character was like floating up above here. And so it looked really cool. The structure looked really cool, but it didn't let you stand here. And so I ended up changing that to what I have here. And in the end, I think it actually looks better. I think it fits better. So, subtle other detail is I really wanted this feeling of like that the DJ could like kind of smoothly pop up from behind. So if like the current DJ is playing, right, and they're like doing their thing up here, and the next DJ is queued up back here, so quote unquote backstage, like getting ready to go on, that they could kind of have like if you've ever seen people at DJs transition at festivals, sometimes there's like another guy who's hiding like just behind the stage, and then they kind of pop up on the stage. And I didn't want them to have to do this and jump up, because like, I mean, you naturally just do this crazy huge high jump, and that feels a little unnatural. So I really wanted to create this little look where you could have the other DJs queuing up here, hanging out with people in the VIP area, but then they get to kind of you can kind of see that they're there. And then though when it's their time, they could just stand here and just walk forward, and then they would naturally go boop and pop up. And then they would, you know, hey, what's up? My name is Cascade. I'm so happy to be here. You know, Prominence, let me see your fucking hands up. That's not what Cascade would say, but you know. There you go. So that's kind of like again, like it's just like a subtle detail of like making sure there is like actually some steps here that create this smooth walk up. And again, it's from the DJ's perspective. I wanted for them to feel really cool, like they're hanging out here, getting ready to go on. They can see the view of the DJ up here, right? Who's already performing, right? And again, if you've seen, recordings of like Ultra or EDC or something like that, EDC this week was happening this weekend too. So probably a lot of you guys saw that. But you'll see this. You'll see where like the DJ is raised up, and then actually the staging area is a little bit lower and it's behind. And a lot of it is for dramatic effect, and also to like really highlight when the DJ goes on, right? So there you go. There's that. This is also like the VIP booths here. Originally, I was playing around with like how to get this, like what to do with this space next to the DJ, and I kind of came up with. I'd seen this at some clubs where they have like the VIP section that is right next to the DJ booth, where the DJ could either hang out prior to going on stage, or hang out after or something, or just that people would feel extra special if they were partying in the VIP next to the DJ. So I was experimenting with like I'm like restricted with the spacing because of the stair banister. So I played around with a lot of different tables for like what could possibly create the tables here. And I could have used these, but they felt a little bit, it didn't feel special. It didn't feel like VIP enough to me. And so I was trying to create something that felt a little unique for the VIP area. And also this, if you think about it, is right above the entryway. So a challenge with creating this whole setup is that all of this has to be hidden when you walk in the build, right? Because the entryway is right, if I like drew a line straight through here, the entryway is right here, right? So a big thing was trying to figure out how I could create all of this stuff, float it all up, and yet the entryway never clues you in as to what's above you, right? There shouldn't be a bunch of shit hanging down from the ceiling that's just like from the upstairs area. So when I was working on this, a big part was like creating these tables. These are Starium stoves that are like hidden way down here, but they hang really far below. And so here, when I was playing around with this, they were hanging and visible from the entryway. And so that was another reason why I didn't use these tables up here in the VIP. And I ended up using these, which is I think the timpani, which is, it's a musical instrument, but hopefully you wouldn't know that just glancing at it. And it ended up working out really nicely because it feels kind of extra ornate and kind of special. And it's like the perfect little table to put the bottle service on. And yeah, so that was the story, I guess, behind the VIP. There you and let me see, what else do we have here on the dance floor area? Oh, another thing, when I talk about vantage points, really quick, sorry, getting very into it here. First of all, Slice of Step. If you are still here in the chat, thank you very much for that follow. Glad to have you here in the stream, and yeah, I hope you've been enjoying the stream so far. Catchable was asking when is the next opening for the nightclub, and yes, thank you, Juliet. It's this Wednesday, and it's a special event, which is prom night at Prominence. It's the very first time, actually, I'm going to be hosting actual special event at Prominence. I'm really excited. It's going to be 6 hours of music, 3 DJs, each with a 2-hour set. Seneki, Ali the Alley Cat Pristine, and then myself, Noah Saitoshii. So here again, I'm going to just drop in Prominence info. So there you go. If you want to take a look, there's the card website for Prominence. If you're, again, watching this in the future, if you look down below, it'll be in the description, prominencenightclub.card.co, which shows you the upcoming events. And it has the full poster, the full flyer for the event this Wednesday. So looking forward to that. I hope a lot of you guys are looking forward to coming and being a part of that event. I'm super excited for it. Okay, so back to the DJ booth here and the vantage point. So I mentioned how like vantage points and viewpoints are very important to me. So first of all, walking in the club, but I also, once again, just like Ichi, I wanted the DJ to also have a cool vantage point, right? So I played a ton with the height of this DJ booth, like not just the decks, but the whole booth itself. It was a lot higher at first, and then it was a lot lower, which was a nightmare to float. But yeah, there's I took like a ton of screenshots and even some video footage of me building this place. So I will potentially be putting together a little thing in the future that maybe shows some of that more behind the scenes, like look, and like you can actually see the iterations of this thing coming into play. Full transparency, I was building this on what was originally my main, and so it's a different character. So if you do see those videos eventually, that footage eventually, and it's not me, a bunny guy, it's because I have another character that owns this house, and it was functioning as my main character as I was playing through the MSQ. So I actually never intended to get into nightlife or even get into the community here in the game. So I kind of stumbled upon this very much by accident, very thankfully so. But so my character was like meant for just like, I came up with a bunch of character designs and I went with the coolest, nicest looking one to play through the MSQ. So anyway, if you do see eventual footage of me and behind the scenes stuff of Prominence, and it's not this, it's not because it's a different person. It's me. It's just on my other character that I was had to build this on. So, but yeah, so building this, I played with the height a lot of this and trying to just make sure that the DJ, if the DJ's streaming or even if they're just hanging out in here, I really wanted them to be able to see the dance floor, the people out on the dance floor, and really be able to give the club people like a view of themselves, right? So something I like to do at least once or twice a night is like show you the view from the DJ booth. So it's like, my perspective is quote unquote. And so I really wanted to make sure that like from the DJ booth, you can see the bar, you can see the back bar, you can see people walking in. You really get a bird's eye view of the whole club, including like a vantage point of most of the dance floor. As well as from a viewer's perspective that almost every angle you're in the club on the dance floor, you should be able to see the DJ, right? So me, the DJ being up here, I wanted to make sure that this was at an appropriate height where like if I'm on the dance floor, almost every vantage point, I can still kind of get a pretty good look at the DJ standing up there, and even like from the bar area, I kind of wanted to make sure that you could very clearly you could stand at the bar, the cutout here, and look through, and you could still see the DJ performing. All eyes on the DJ, all eyes on the performer, the headliner. And Miss Dahlia says, does prom mean fluffy dresses and such? Honestly, it means whatever you want. I say it's a classy dress event, or a classy clubbing event. So whatever that means to you, though, I mean, frankly, I'm not going to police you at the door if you come in with something else, but I would highly encourage people to get excited about the idea of getting dressed up, even coordinating with a date, like if asking a date even, coordinate with your date, have fun with it, it's really meant to be just make some memories, whether it's new memories for prom, or maybe you never had a prom, or maybe prom didn't go so well or whatever. But for whatever you make of this, I want it to just be a thing that's really just fun, a fun theme to get into. I know some people are like already talking about they're going to meet up beforehand and get ready together, or people have been asking people in cute ways out to the prom. or people were matching outfits and figuring out glam. So yeah, just have fun with it, you know? Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so I think, oh, I guess maybe just like another like aside of like, so in the order that I built a lot of this, right, is I had a lot of these ideas of like what I wanted to achieve in here. Fog on the dance floor, back bar, DJ booth, big LED wall, some kind of a very iconic lighting structure. And I think sort of the rough order that kind of came into existence in terms of me really locking stuff into place and figuring out everything was I figured out the chandelier bits first. So one of the first things that really cued me in and locked me into the tone and the look of this build was building out some of these initial chandelier structures. So this pattern where you have like this kind of pattern circular structure, which you can see repeated everywhere. And figuring out sort of this base pattern was, I think, one of the very first things that really cued me into like what the tone, the theme, the overall lighting and the look of this build was going to be. And almost everything else that I did after that, I always tried to step back and walk through the build and make sure that the vibe added and enhanced those elements. It just kept adding and adding and adding to that vibe and that same feel. And that if anything, even if I had cool ideas, like there was a bunch of other ideas I tried for backdrops or bar ideas, even for like, you know, VIP seating, entryway stuff. And a lot of it though, it didn't quite have the same feel. It didn't feel cohesive. And so ultimately didn't make it in the build. But hopefully it feels very unified now, completed here. And oh, here's a good learning opportunity for anybody. So something I like to tell people to do, we even have a macro for this in game, is to use tilt camera in here. It's very useful in Prominence especially, but it's also useful in other clubs. But if you type /tilt camera space and then you give it a value between 0 and 100, the camera will angle itself upward. And I think you can also hold control on a keyboard and use the arrow keys and it'll slowly nudge up and down. But personally, I like to do this. So I'll do, like, for example, tilt camera 75. And do you see how my camera popped upward like that? Right? I'll do that again. I'm gonna tilt it back down. I'll do tilt camera 0, right? So this is the base, right? So your character is in the center of the screen. Do you see how my character is like dead center? And if I zoom in my camera, it's all in relation to me being in the center of the screen, right? So now watch though, see I'm in the center? Watch what happens if I'm looking at this view and I do tilt camera 100, which is the maximum value. Look at the difference this makes. Watch this. Do you see that? See the difference that makes in your vantage point of the build? And now my character is still in view, but they're just at the bottom middle of the viewport. So, pro tip, which I'll shout out in chat if you're ever in Prominence, but pro tip, if you ever need to see better vantage points of the ceiling, whether you're actually visiting a build, but also if you're actually building, I know if you're building custom ceilings, this is also very useful when you're trying to like angle your camera upward, use tilt camera. So there you go. This is the full view of Prominence Nightclub that I usually show off when I'm inside the build and I'm DJing. And the way this is achieved is using tilt camera. So there you go. Now you know, for anybody who did not know about tilt camera. And again, to reset it at default too, you can always type tilt camera 0 and it will snap it back down to the default. But I will keep it actually right now at maybe 75 because I think it's a much better vantage point while we are inside here. So there we go, 75. It's a nice, not quite super high, but pretty high. And yeah, it is kind of like people have said it looks kind of like a spaceship, or like a lot of people have compared it to BioShock, which I have admittedly never played, although I understand what they're going for, but it's like kind of that Art Deco and kind of a little bit almost like cyberpunk, grungy, and kind of very industrial. And so I know I've heard several people compare this to like a spaceship or like cyberpunky something or BioShock. And I don't mind the comparison at all. I think those games and those places and things are all very beautiful. So yeah, whatever you want to think of it as, I hope it's a place that is very recognizable and has a very unique architectural structure that you've probably never really seen before. Oh, subtle little detail that I don't know, I very nerdily added this in, and I really just wanted to keep this, was I had the chords that are coming out of the DJ mixer. So like, yes, a running joke in like a lot of the clubbing scene sometimes is like DJs who are maybe playing pre-recorded sets or something, and like one of the ways that some people try to point out when that happens is they're like, the mixer's not even plugged in, which, okay, slightly being nerdy here, but like there's ways where you don't actually need the cords like necessarily popping physically out of the back per se. There's like HID mode and some other things where like you're using like your laptop or you're using other paraphernalia and stuff to achieve it. So you might not have like all of the cords popping out of the back of the mixer. But anyway, so to say, a very subtle effect here. There's like a whole there's a whole mess of shit going on here just to achieve this effect and like have this be possible. But one of the little subtle touches is I like that I was able to put in these little cords coming out of it. So yes, we are mixing live. The mixer is plugged in at Prominence. You can tell your friends. We're doing it live. And also, so the bar structure back here, I didn't say this earlier, but so the bar structure back here, I knew I wanted to try to create like 2 different bars. And I had this idea of like, that some of the clubs I've been to have clubs that are, or bars that are on the dance floor or very close to the dance floor. But I played around with the idea of having the bar like here or here, but it just started feeling too closed because this dance floor is already quite small. But I rationalized that because you can dance all around, again, with the tiers thing, right? So there's all the dance floor, there's the VIP section, there's like the space here, up on here, just like at Ichi, and there's even all the space up and around up here. And like kind of one of my dreams, which maybe we'll get to there during the prom night event this Wednesday, but would be if we sell out this place, I want people just like dancing on all levels of the club, up here, down here, over here. We kind of got there actually last time I opened, I think. We had like a bunch of people dancing here. Shout out to like all the cat guys and people dancing up here. And we did have people dancing on pretty much every level, but the dream is like on every level and all around the club. So let's see if we can get there one day, guys. Tell your friends. So when creating this bar though, I think a really interesting thing I didn't feel like something I hadn't seen before was I didn't feel like I saw a lot of people using a circular bar. And I actually, originally, Prominence, I was starting the idea of building Prominence into an adventurer's tavern. Like completely not a nightclub. When I first got the large, I started building this place and I was building like a adventurer's hall. Like, and I was thinking, oh, we can hold like concerts and kind of like a mixed bag of stuff in here. And one of the thoughts that I had when I was building this as that adventurous hall was to create a circular bar, because I hadn't really seen, at least again, maybe someone has done this, but I had not seen someone really do a circular shape to their bar. And so I was playing around with ideas of how to create that. And I kind of created an early concept for that when I was playing around with that. And so then when I ended up, with these chandelier designs, this architecture, and I was like, oh, this is the perfect spot to once again bring in that circular bar concept that I had been playing around with. And so that's the reason that this is here. And this is the reason this bar looks the way it does, is because I wanted to mirror, all the curvature and the circular elements and try to fit that into this pocket here and emulate, that the architecture chandelier elements come down and they just continue down straight into the bar wall element here. So there you go. And you didn't, Knife Dove saying that you didn't want to get up there because some have very strict rules. Yeah, so I would say like hype people kind of, if they ask if they need the space or something, like for example, sometimes I will tell people come up and jump on the, jump up here and, you dance with me or jump up in the VIP. VIP is a little bit different. Like that's kind of, you know, we're not like super heavy RP focused. So like VIP is kind of like, just come on up here and like live out your VIP dreams. But do try to leave like the spaces here for the main hype people who are actually working at Prominence, right next to DJ decks. But in terms of like dancing up on here, you know, like dancing on these these sort of back wall areas along the seating, or if you're dancing like up here, right, that's totally fine. I think if anything, that's encouraged, especially dancing up along here, along the railings, and just like dancing, cheering down in the dance floor at the DJ. On either side, that's very much encouraged, and that's totally fine. So don't worry about that. Just like don't stand here in front of the bartender and dance on their table or something. You know, nothing that would be rude, right? If your friends want you to dance on the table here, then like by all means go for it, I guess. But you know, if someone's RPing here and having a chat with friends, please, you know, just basically respect the staff and respect people who are enjoying whatever their experience is there. But if you're not, you know, goofing with that, then I welcome you to, you know, jump up and have fun and, you know, start a party train up along here. The one thing is, if you are dancing like specifically like way back here, then I might not be able to see you on stream. So if a bunch of you guys start collecting on the upper areas, kind of take a look maybe how I'm having my camera angled. So, like, it'd be kind of cool to have people dancing instead of here, maybe have them here, right? Like in the visible portion where I'm showing this view, and you'd have them here and here. So that'd be like maybe just if you needed to pick a spot, then you could go there. Okay. So also, this actually there's a couple of things in here that actually may change or not, but something, a subtle detail that I added, that actually I understandably, I wasn't able to build this out as much as I wanted to, just slot limits. But so this little part is actually not meant to necessarily be a dancer's platform, although I think it's become that a bit. But originally, these are supposed to just be tables that are spread around throughout the club to allow people to still be partying, but have somewhere to put their drinks down. Oops, I accidentally hit a hotkey there. But so if you've been to real life nightclubs, then you probably have had drinks, and sometimes like you're walking around the dance floor or even around the upper areas, and sometimes like if they don't have a clear spot you're supposed to put your drink down, people just start leaving drinks everywhere, right? Or understandably, like sometimes you're having a drink with your friends, but then you need to, I don't know, tie your shoe, or you need to just like, you're just going a little crazy to this one particular song, and you don't want to have your drinks sloshing all over the place. And so actually the idea, this is mirrored on the other side too, but these are supposed to be originally drink tables and like places where like, oh, you know, I didn't get a VIP table per se with my friends, but like we still have a place to put our drinks or stand around and kind of congregate and talk. So it's fine though, you know, I mean, it kind of has become a lot of times people use it as like a dance platform, and that's honestly fine. I might even move them eventually and free up the slots to do something else. I may be editing some stuff about Prominence in the future, so some of this may not be the case when you see this in the future. But yeah, there you go. Now you know, and you can tell people what these are, in addition to being platforms you can stand on. Okay, so now here, going into the bar area. So again, I think something that was very important was, we talked about how at Ichi, the bar was, we talked about having two bars, one upstairs and then one downstairs, and that the upstairs one that was away from the dance floor would be the main bar and more featured. And so I think something we found out though was that really most people wanted to be closer to the dance floor. And so I think that was something that we really I wanted to get in here, which was I wanted to make sure that there was like a way for people to potentially get drinks without leaving the dance floor area. So this is similar to the Ichi's downstairs bar, but a little maybe more built out. And then I also really like the idea of, even though there is another upstairs bar, which has a bit more like open area for RP and stuff, there was still like this, we could make use of the natural built-in cutout window here. So that way, no matter where you are in the club, you kind of can see that there is another bar and be reminded, oh yeah, I could go get a drink there. And also, if there's like a ton of people having fun up here, you could see that and get a little tease of like, oh, that looks like fun what they're doing up there. Like, let's go hang out and see what they're doing. So it works two ways. You could be out on the dance floor or just walking in the club and you see the bar, but also if you are inside the bar, grabbing your drink or maybe waiting in line, and you still want to look out, you could still like catch the show, right? See, so even though I'm in the bar area, I can still catch the show. I can see my friends dancing. I can see the DJ. So I'm not ever, like nobody in the club is ever like out of the action per se, if they don't want to be, right? And there we go. We brought in more, again, bringing in the structure elements over here as well that are, you know, representative of the stuff out here. Lychee Snake, thank you for that follow. Welcome to the stream. And yeah, hopefully both of the bars feel unique and different from each other, but they also feel like they belong within the space. And I wanted to, yeah, just see what I could do with building a bar. And if you've been following some of my other builds that I've done since I finished Prominence, like my FC room that we built on stream, then you'll probably recognize like this pattern of like using the some lights with these the bar counter or the bar wall shelves here. And that's because I did it here. And then I kind of pulled that into the FC cafe and bar build that I built on stream with you guys. But yeah, this is the more robust, full built out version. And I wanted to, again, kind of give it that industrial feel where, again, there's like a lot of this like repeating patterns everywhere, right? Repeating lines, and repeating LEDs and repeating structures. And so I wanted that here too. So, you know, using repeating line work, giving a lot of like just visual decor and texture and structure to these. And so, and of course, like I also wanted to make it just like the other places, like a fully functioning bar that a bartender could work at. So, you know, down there you have the cups hanging. I'll show those in a second here. But yeah, you have like in here, right? There's the cups, right? There's the mixers and like presumably ingredients. There's maybe a display and a menu for like, oh, this is kind of some of the stuff you can order. Here's our specialties or like, you know, imported drinks. There's all the drinks here. And cash register even. So if people really wanted to play out the full bar RP, they could. And again, bringing in like natural elements, keeping the same kinds of lighting and the vibe and lushness, the biophilic design we talked about earlier, keeping it throughout the build. And then, yeah, we wanted, yeah, a bit of space here too. So if people wanted to just have a space that's a little bit away from the dance floor, they could chat and hang out. Again, I think actually a rework of the bar may be coming somewhat soon. I've been talking to my bartenders, Honey Jade in particular. Shout out Honey Jade, you're awesome. Amazing bartender. She's so awesome. And she runs the bar game. She'll be there at prom night, running the bar game as well as Orion. And yeah, I was talking to Honey Jade because she is a heavy RP focused player where she has her own RP venue bar, and she also participates in a lot of RP stuff. And so she's been giving me wonderful perspective, both from Ichi days as well as here in Prominence, about how to make the experience great for the RP bartenders who are serving the guests here. And so I know one of the things that she was talking about is that for her, I tried to do this where like, you know, you could be at the bar here and see like the bartender could be like this and their camera wouldn't be clipping too badly and they could still look out and see stuff and see their guests. But I know it ended up being a little bit cramped, and especially for Honey being a row, I know her camera was having a bit of trouble here with the ceiling and with the back here. See how this is happening? And so we've been talking about potentially reworking the bar a little bit to help prevent that from happening. Because again, I think, you know, from the DJ to the dancers to the guests, and of course to the bartenders too, I really want the experience of both hanging out in here, but also working here or performing in here to be great for everybody. So it's kind of, you know, hopefully, in a way, if I did my job, it should be effortless to work in here, right? You shouldn't have to be like, my camera is, you know, it should just work. And then that's when I did my job correctly as the architect, as the designer. But yeah, so, you know, I also wanted to make sure like every viewpoint of the bar, if you walk into the bar, it looks cool. If you see it from the outside, it looks cool. Knife Dove saying, love the organ pipe detailing. Thank you, yeah. I thought it matched very nicely with sort of the rest of the architecture and the structure going on here. Beautiful, just beautiful detailing on the marimba design. And yeah, oh, and so I was saying here earlier too, right? So we have like full built-out bar, right? And we have a menu again. We have the drinks and stuff, and then we have cups even hanging here. Kind of like that idea of having like the cups that would be hanging by little brackets upside down. That the bartenders, you know, you see at a lot of bars, they pull a cup off the shelf and there it is. So, yeah, there we go. Ta-da! That is Prominence, and that is now you guys know maybe I missed a little few things here and there, but I think I covered quite a bit of that. So this has been me walking through both Ichi and Prominence Nightclub on this stream. And so if you missed any part of this, by the way, if you wanted to watch this in full or show one of your friends, this full VOD for this will be on my YouTube channel. For any of you guys who are currently in the Twitch chat here, there's my YouTube channel. It has the VODs from all my other housing streams as well, if you're interested in those. But yeah, the VOD in full will be on my YouTube channel, so you can go back and rewatch and figure out stuff, take notes. I see some people saying makes you want to renovate your house or something. Oh, Kama, first of all, first time chatter. Oh, and Lychee Snake, both of you guys, first time chatters. Welcome to the stream. Inozamina, thank you for that follow. Yeah, Lychee Snake, Inozanima. Thank you guys both for those follows. I think I saw you guys come in follow about the same time, and my main is on Ether, but I'm ready to hop on Alt to visit. Yes, so normally the club is closed during off-club hours, but check out the Prominence website or join my Discord. If you want like notifications for when Prominence events happen and when I'm going live in them and stuff, then you can join my Discord. All my socials are linked below, and you can opt in for notifications for upcoming updates on new events that are going to happen at Prominence, as well as like when we're going live there. Or if you just want, if you don't want to join Discord, I understand. Check out the Prominence website that has a bunch of information about Prominence, kind of the story behind it. It has the drink menu, the bar challenge game, the rules there, and it also will showcase the upcoming events. So yeah, I hope you can come out to that. The next opening is going to be this Wednesday, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. PST. So it's going to be a special event, prom night at Prominence. So hopes a bunch of you guys can come out to that. And for Prominence, it's in lavender beds. So if you want to make an alt and come to Prominence, or if you have friends who want to make alts, make it and start the alt in Gridania. So just pick Conjurer or Lancer or something like that. And you do not actually have to do any of the MSQ. Just make an alt and then run to the lavender beds. And you can actually get here as like a level 2. So even literally the night of, if you ever have friends who want to come check this place out, and they want to see it in person, have them make an alt, make it starting Gridania on Crystal Mateus, and then just run over to Prominence here. So here we go. There's the address in case anybody wants to, screenshot that or jot it down. But it's Prominence, so it's Crystal Mateus, Lavender Beds, Ward 20, Plot 3. So there you go. I hope to see many of you out this Wednesday at prom night, or perhaps this coming Sunday at the garden party. So if you didn't know, we have Wednesday openings are usually inside the nightclub here, and then Sunday openings are earlier in the day, 4 to 6 p.m. PST, and it's in the garden outside, and it's melodic house music, so it's like much more like chilled out, like just beautiful, uplifting house music out in nature. So if you, I mean, honestly, I encourage you to come check out both nights. I think they both have different flavors, and I think they both offer something unique. So highly recommend checking out one or both of those. And if not this week, keep an lookout for upcoming events, and would love to have you at Prominence events and Ichi events, mind you. You know, with Rofcast, oh shoot, let's see here. I can quickly find the Ichi Discord here. With the information. Hold on, Ichi venue information. Here's the card. So here, I'll link also the card. There we go. So for anybody's interested, so Ichi Nightclub. This is the card made by Rofcast and them. So that has information for Ichi, and you can get a link to the Ichi Discord and all that stuff from there. So that's ichinightclub.card.co, and then Prominence's card, the website is prominencenightclub.card.co. So if you guys want more information on those, you can take a look there. So yeah, anyway, I think I'm going to end the stream here for tonight. That was a lot, but I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I hopefully, did you guys like that? Was that cool? Did you guys like such a detailed look at this build and that full breakdown? I know we got really nerdy there for a little while at parts, but hopefully it was entertaining and hopefully it was interesting. Hopefully maybe it means that when you come to either Ichi or Prominence, you notice some things maybe you didn't, I guess. So yeah. Hope you got inspired. Maybe it gave you some ideas for your own nightclubs, or even just like the look and the feel and kind of like how you can go about creating some of those effects. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, the VOD will be saved, so YouTube, my YouTube channel, you can take a look at it there. If you're watching this on YouTube, hello, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And timestamps are probably down below, and because I'll try to add some timestamps of like some key moments that we talk about throughout the builds. And yeah, thank you guys. I'm seeing a lot of people saying you guys really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad. It makes it well worth it. I'm glad I was able to do this. I'm glad I was able to talk through a lot of this stuff, and help me you know, if you guys like this, hopefully I'll see you guys around on some other streams, or in my DJ set for prom night, or any future DJ sets that I do. I guess I didn't maybe say that directly, but like, so I built both of Ichi and Prominence, and I own Prominence. Rofcast owns Ichi, but I also DJ in Final Fantasy, and one of the main places I DJ is here at my own nightclub at Prominence. So you can catch me there again with the Prominence dates. And I'm going to be starting to DJ at some other clubs as well. So yeah, highly recommend though, if you come in person, it's a different kind of experience. It's a little bit special. It's a little bit different. Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, Lychee Snakes, Slices Step, and Zamina. Thank you guys all three for the Prime subscriptions. And wait, did I see? Oh, wow. We even got we're in a hype train. Wow. Right as the stream's ending too. Oh man, but still, thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. You could be Prime subscribing to anybody, but you subscribe to me, so I appreciate that. Knife Dove, you too. Thank you for that Prime sub. If anyone isn't aware, if you have Amazon Prime and you link your Prime account to your Twitch, you get one free sub to a channel every month, I believe, and it can be a different channel every month. But thank you guys for choosing my channel for this month. I really appreciate that, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed the stream enough and you to feel that was merited. It means a lot, and many more housing streams. Looking forward to that. And yeah, oh yeah, Liara, I know this is the first club you ever went to, and now I've seen you out at a bunch of clubs, or at least a couple times at some other clubs, like at Club Orbit. And I've seen a bunch of people actually mention that either Ichi or Prominence was their first nightclub. And so I'm honored, and I'm glad if it made an impression on you that made you want to keep going back. For anybody who watches in the future too, if you're like in the housing world, but you're a little nervous about being in the nightlife world, as someone who exists in both, let me tell you, like, I'm also kind of nervous sometimes when I'm out in the crowd and stuff, but like, honestly, both communities like are very welcoming. If you're in nightlife and you want to get in housing, awesome. Come join my streams. Come check out the housing resources and stuff. It's wonderful. And vice versa. If you're in housing and you're a little hesitant about like, I've never really been to a nightclub in Final Fantasy, I don't really know how it goes, just try it, you know? I can recommend you personally, come to Ichi or come to Prominence. We really welcome everybody. We love having new people there. It's really just like a warm, welcoming atmosphere that we try to create there. And we really want everybody to just feel at home, and like it's just a fun place to, oops, let's make sure I do not time out in game here. But yeah, it's a really wonderful place to meet people too who maybe have similar music tastes, and maybe make some other friends to go party at other clubs with. So yeah, once you get on the floor, it is everything. Yes, you got to come here in person. It's a different feel. It's a different experience being here in game with people dancing with you, with the DJ playing. If you don't know how that works, usually what we do is see how the view that I have right now. I'd be showing this and talking to you just like I am, but I'm also be DJing. I have a mixer in person here, and I'd be live mixing and piping through the audio, so we are all listening to the same DJ effectively set, the soundtrack, while we're all partying together. So yeah, if you've never tried it, come check it out. If you watch this in the future, check out the nightlife scene in Final. I recommend it, and you'll probably end up finding something pretty magical about it. There's a surprising amount of emotion that you feel when you come out to these things. You know, I was surprised. I was genuinely blown away by what I felt when I first came out to the nightlife scene. So I'm glad if we can give that to other people now. And so what days does Ichi open? So first of all, again, I'll link the website here. So this is Prominence. Here we go. So there again is the website. So the hours are there too. I can even put this up really quick. So here, I'm going to do a little overlay on top of the stream here. So this is roughly the hours. Right, so this is the idea of Prominence here. This is all Prominence all summed up, right? So Wednesdays are club night inside the main dance hall here. Sundays are garden parties outside in the garden, at the garden stage. And Wednesdays are generally a little bit later at night, and it's kind of like peak clubbing hours, like high energy party atmosphere. But like always kind of with a catering for like kind of creating really curated musical journeys per se. Maybe that sounds a little corny, but I mean, we're trying to do something a little bit different. It won't just be top 40 or something, you know, all the time here. We're trying to show you a couple other flavors of like electronic music and stuff that you maybe hadn't heard of before, whether that's outside or inside garden party club night, either way. But so basically it's Wednesdays and Sundays and every other week. So this coming week we are on Wednesday. We're having actually a special event. So the hours for the special event are extended. Here, I'm going to show you. This is the flyer for the special event we have this week. If you're watching this in the future, obviously this doesn't apply anymore, but take a look at the website, Prominence Nightclub, .card. And that's where you could always see what's happening, if there's any special events, if there's any dates. But yeah, it's this Wednesday, then this coming Sunday, then we have a week off, and then it'll be back again, Wednesday and Sunday, at least at the time of recording. It's possible in the future we eventually do some other stuff where we, open other days. I even did like a little guerrilla, like impromptu Prominence set the other night, last Friday? Last Friday? Yeah. So it could happen that way. Where we open more than just the Wednesday and Sunday, but that's our schedule. And then I stream housing though every week, Monday, Wednesday, 4 to 6 p.m. except for this Wednesday, I will not be streaming because of the extended prom night hours. So for anybody who's coming this Wednesday, yeah, focus on getting ready for prom. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be pairing music and stuff. So I will not be streaming housing this coming Wednesday. Okay. Next week we'll be back, but this coming Wednesday, no housing, just an extended 6-hour opening of Prominence. So you have a couple days. Make those alts, find those glams, ask that date, you know, gather your friends, you know, party car it up over here, you know. Thank you. Also, and thank you guys, everybody. We just got like a level 1 hype train here. That was awesome. What a way to end the stream. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that. So let's see, just make sure I didn't see anything in chat if you haven't. I think that covers it though. I think that covers everything. Thank you guys all again so much for coming. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. I'll see you guys in my Discord if you are joining that. Hang out with you guys soon. Hope you got inspired. Hope you learned something. Yeah. I think that's gonna be all for me for now. Bye. Good evening and good night, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your night wherever that takes you.